97.3 ESPN presents The Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
When I'm driving, I got a guy on the radio who talks to me. I can't see him, but he talks to me.
Now, live from inside the Ocean Casino Resort Studio, here's Mike Gill.
Happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome aboard. It's the Sports Bash live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, live video, streaming on the X platform, YouTube, 97.3 ESPN on the YouTube channel. I'm your host, Mike Gill. Josh Hennings producing today's show. You out there, well, it was wet and nasty and just not fun this weekend. Phillies had a rough weekend, although they did win last night out in San Diego. We'll get into that. I got a lot of thoughts on the Phillies. They're past the 50-game mark now. We're past Memorial Day weekend. And I definitely want to get everybody's thoughts on this. Like, I got to the point the other night when the Phillies got beat in the series against Cleveland. And I'm thinking to myself, even the win last night, they won the game last night. I think, they have 3 hits in the game, 2 home runs, 3 hits total. Like, if you're Dave Dombrowski, are you not embarrassed by the product that you're putting out there? Or are you content with, like, I've done a good job? So I'm not here to say that he's done a bad job. I think we get into this world of, like, you know, it's the Ricky Bobby rules. If you're not first, you're last. I'm not saying that Dave Dombrowski has been terrible. He's got a team to the World Series in 2022. They won 95 games. They won 96 games. They've been a good team. But you get to the point where when you're a good team, what are you doing to put the team over the top? And for Dave Dombrowski to put this lineup out there, here we are in 2026, and this is the lineup that they continue to put out there. They hit JT Realmuto in the 5-hole the other night. 5th. He is a 35-year-old catcher who's hitting .210 maybe, an OPS that is in like the low 5s, and that's the guy that you pulled out of the hat and said, you know what? Why don't we hit him 5th? And it's not like, well, who would you hit 5th? Because they don't have any other options. Realmuto's not a good option. He might not even be the best option. But your other options include another waste of $10 million. Just think about sports. The amount of money that is wasted in a world where people are struggling mightily with the almighty dollar. And we're just handing $10 million out to see if a guy can hopefully play. $10 million. At what point do you tell Adolis Garcia, thank you, sir? I don't get it. How you can convince somebody that guy's making $10 million a year. $10 million. Is Dave Dombrowski bad at his job? He's not bad. He's not awful. But you should be embarrassed. If you are Dave Dombrowski, you have not in the last 4 years been able to find a guy to hit right-handed. Not one. They have the worst OPS against left-handed pitching that you could ever imagine. They can't hit lefties. They cannot find one human being on planet Earth to hit right-handed. And I'm not talking about this year. I'm talking about since 2023. They let Rhys Hoskins walk and haven't been able to find one human to hit right-handed. They haven't been able to find one guy that could catch. Not one guy that could catch other than JT Realmuto. And you get to the point where now JT Realmuto is struggling. And he's not a bad catcher. I get it. He can catch, and he can frame, and he can throw. But he can't hit. And you're batting him in the 5-hole. You want to tell me JT Realmuto's the best catcher, receiving and throwing and all those things? Fine. Then hit him 9th. But you can't. because you need him to hit fifth. Dave Dombrowski should be embarrassed for a myriad of things. Can you imagine if you walked in to your boss and said, boss, I need $25 million for Aaron Nola? How do you walk down the building and show your face with these mistakes? Trey Turner, hey, boss, I need a check for $300 million for this guy. Can you sign it for me? And this is what you get? Sports needs a total reset, man. Sports needs a reset. I'm watching the NBA game last night. The Cavaliers completely quit. James Harden says, well, I thought we were the better team. James Harden, I got news for you. You have never been on the better team. Why? Because you're on it. That's why you haven't been on the better team. You're on it. And you're in this sports world where I don't even know how to describe it. I was trying to tell Josh, hey, my opening of the show today, this is the road I'm going to go down, and I don't even know how to explain what I'm trying to say. Like, James Harden isn't good enough, but he's better than many guys in the league, so he has to be included in the league, but I don't want to pay him. Well, somebody's going to pay him, but I don't want to pay him, but somebody has to pay him. Paul George is not worth $54 million. Paul George is getting paid $54 million. He's not worth $54 million. He's not awful, but you don't just not include him in the league. Because what do you do? That's what his salary is. That's what the rules say. He has reached a level in his career that if you want to sign him, it has to be for $54 million. We need a sports reset. Adolis Garcia, you want to play baseball? $500,000. And even $500,000 is a lot of money. $10 million? You get $10 million to hit 201? That's the going rate. JT Realmuto, $15 million? Between JT Realmuto and Adolis Garcia, that's $25 million lousy dollars. Not to mention the $20 million you're paying Nick Castellanos to go play in San Diego. You played $10 million to Kepler last year, who gave you nothing. So your job as Dave Dombrowski is to walk into the owner and say, can I get a check for $10 million for Kepler? Sorry, that didn't work. Can I get another $10 million check to pay for Adolis Garcia? Well, he stinks. All right, can I get $15 million to pay for the catcher to bring him back? He's not very good. Well, I need $25 million to pay for the pitcher who gets rocked every time he pitches. Sorry, let me try again. I mean, it's just over and over. At what point do the mistake after mistake after mistake do you say, hey, Dave, you got us to a certain level. You've done a really good job, but to get over the top, we have to move on. I can't even believe the lineup that they're putting out there. And it's like, well, it's Rob Thompson's. He's horrible. He's a terrible manager. Well, guess what? Now, apparently, Don Mattingly stinks too. I'm getting people saying, oh, my God, this Mattingly, blah, 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 blah. It's the same team. It's the same team. You just thought magically a new manager was going to whoop, 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 and all of a sudden these guys were going to start hitting? They started hitting because the teams they played stunk. The money thing is just outrageous to me, though. The money thing is outrageous to me that you could just keep spending and spending and making. When was the last time Dave Dombrowski made an under-the-radar, shrewd move that you're like, okay, that one worked out. That was really good. People are like, you don't know what you're talking about. Edmundo Sosa. Edmundo Sosa's hitting 220. Yes, Sosa's been that was a nice move. They found Sosa. I'll give Dombrowski some credit. He's helped this team out. He's been a nice platoon player. But where's an under-the-radar move that they have made where they got the guy on the one-year deal for $5 million and he turned out to be, wow, he was much better than I thought. Yeah, Hoffman, that type of guy. Okay, I'll give you Hoffman. He's not here anymore. Why? Because in the playoffs, he came up small. Matt Strahm, he was a guy that you got that I think exceeded expectations. I'll give you points for Matt Strahm. Tanner Banks, good job. You found Tanner Banks. He's been an under-the-radar guy. He hasn't been very good this year, but I know he's made a few of these moves. But the problem is you have to keep signing guys for $10 million because you can't figure out how to find a bat. And you have to give Aaron Nola $25 million because after you gave $18 million to Taijuan Walker, you need someone to eat up innings. So you just said, okay, Aaron Nola starts every fifth day. I'll pay him $25 million to start every fifth day. And whether he gets his brains beat in or not, who cares? He'll at least give us 5 or 6 innings. At what point is it just, hey, the way we're doing things isn't working? And I'm mixing the two sports together because I think they both need a total reset in the way that this is going. Look at the Knicks. Leon Rose is a guy who came in. By the way, he was an agent. And he has completely changed that whole organization. The Knicks were a laughingstock. They were down rotten. They were a joke. And periodically over the last 6 years since he's been hired, they have just said, look, this guy is getting paid way too much. He can't play. He's out of here. This guy gets paid way too much. He can't play. He's out of here. Julius Randle, out. RJ Barrett, gone. All these guys that they deem to be, hey, you're a good player, fine, but you're not a winning player. And you're getting you've hit the threshold of dollar that I just don't want to pay anymore. Because of the return on my investment, it's not there. I want guys who can play and that can win. Maybe they're not scoring as many points per game as James Harden does. Or maybe they don't score as many points per game as Paul George does. But in the end, they give me a better ROI for a better value. And I don't know what you do in this sports world. It just needs a total reset. A total reset. They're talking about James Harden is going to opt out of his deal, and he's willing to take less to help the Cavs get under the second apron. Where have I heard this story before? Remember, Daryl Morey is a liar. That's what happened. James Harden said he was willing to take less money so that the Sixers could be a player in free agency. And then the Sixers wised up. Daryl Morey said, you know what? I was going to try to sign you to a long-term deal, but after watching you play, I don't think you deserve it. The Phillies weekend, no offense yet again. Even when they win, no offense. I mean, you need Jesus Luzardo to be Cy Young last night. You need, over the weekend, Christopher Sanchez was outstanding. And that was the only game that you really had. They just can't hit. And it's like, why can't this team hit? Well, do you see the lineup they put out there? JT Realmuto hit 5th. Adolis Garcia is hitting under 200, I think, now. It's a joke. It's a joke. You know, we have devalued batting average. No one cares about your batting average anymore, right? No one cares. Batting average, who cares? No one cares about batting average. We have devalued batting average so much that it doesn't matter that you're only hitting 210 or 230 or. You know, the Phillies put out a lineup the other day. John Clark put this out there. And in this lineup that John Clark posted, let me pull up the tweet. It's fascinating. It is a Trey Turner, 221. Schwarber, 233. Bohm, 210. Stott, 236. Garcia, 200. Crawford, 235. Marchand, 082. We have devalued batting average so much. And I'm thinking, when we have devalued batting average, we have lost the way of saying, can you hit? Well, this guy has an OPS and he's on base. And Okay, he's on base, but that doesn't mean he can hit. Can you hit? You know, if you have a batting average of 300, that's telling me that you can consistently find ways to hit your way on base. So we have now devalued, hey, guy hits 275. That guy can hit. But if you're hitting under 270, 275, 270, you really can't hit. You know, if you're hitting 236, that means 23% of the time you found a way to put a ball where somebody else isn't. We've just devalued the fact that some guys can actually hit, not just hit a home run. Schwarber can hit a home run. His 971 OPS, that's outstanding. Very good. His 233 average, though, suggests in the end, at the end of the day, if I need in the playoffs, when the pitching gets really good, if you're a 233 hitter, you're just not a good hitter. Now you're just winging prayer in it. I'm hoping that Schwarber, who gets a hit 23% of the time, I'm hoping that of the 23% of the hits he gets, 20% of them go over the fence? That's all this team is, all they are right now. It is Schwarber hitting a home run, and you're hoping that someone else also does. Like last night, you got a home run from Schwarber, and you got a 2-run homer from Marsh, and your pitching was that good, and you won the game. You managed 3 hits last night. 3. The frustration of this roster, though, it goes back to Dave Dombrowski. And I'm not here saying that he's done an awful job. He's not bad at his job. But it just hasn't been good enough for multiple years. I can understand if it's like this is the first year. Hey, man, we're going out to try to win a World Series this year, and this is the first time you put this team together. Okay, you came up a little short. You've been doing this with this team since 2022. How many sample sizes do you need to figure out what you need? They've never added catching depth. They never found a right-handed bat to hit in the middle of the lineup and or platoon with somebody that hits left-handed. They never found a cheap innings eater guy. Hey, where's that veteran that could just go out there and make like $8 million and make a start? And he pitches 5. No, you're paying those guys $25 million. Where's the cheap super utility guy that you just have to play every day because you just can't get him out of the lineup because he's just so good? The Phillies guy is Sosa, who hits 220, and we're like, he's great. You got to play him every day. Anybody who tells me you want to play Sosa every day, I don't want to hear your baseball opinions on anything baseball related. Sosa is what he is. He's just a guy. There's 50 Sosas in this league that are the 11th man who can play second and short. I get this guy text me, you got to play Sosa every day. Sosa stinks when he plays every day. He's a nice little energy piece. You know what Sosa is right now? He's hitting 222. Put it this way, Sosa has now dropped below. It's unbelievable that Sosa is dropped to 250 on base percentage. Stop giving me the Sosa stuff. But part of this is you're so disenchanted with what you have that you're just trying to find ways to replace the guys that you're just like, okay, I'm over Bohm. I'm over Stott. I'm over Turner. I'm over Garcia already. I mean, the Garcia thing is just, they got to figure out what they're going to do there. He's really bad. He's lost, no power. He's a good defensive player. I mean, that's the only thing that he's got going for him over Castellanos. You basically swapped out Garcia and the whole Castellanos thing from last night. He says, I would have come back. The heck, you should have just paid him the money to platoon. He said he was willing to platoon. Said he was willing to come back and platoon. Instead, you told him not to show up. I would have rather paid him than give another $10 million out, although I don't know. All right. I'm a little wound up today. I didn't get a lot of sleep.
Welcome, Mike. How you doing today? Aside from being exasperated, frustrated, annoyed, and just contemplating how things even happen like this. What I would ask is, because first of all, I'm happy to hear you've joined me on the Dombrowski.
I've never been the biggest.
train.
I've never been the biggest Dombrowski guy. I've always said he's come up short. This team hasn't done this, but the other day when they put a lineup out, that was the one. When they put a lineup out with JT Realmuto hitting fifth, that's the one that I had to say, okay, are you not embarrassed? Do you not get embarrassed?
See, to me, I started getting to the point that you're at now, this offseason, when they trade away Matt Strahm and he started pontificating about Jonathan Bolin. And that was the moment I was like, dude, nobody cares about Jonathan Bolin. Stop telling me about Jonathan Bolin. Tell me how you're fixing the lineup. And that leads me to the question I have for you.
I don't know what the Strahm thing has anything to do with that.
Well, no, that was the moment that I started.
I actually liked the Strahm deal. I was done with him. Time to move on.
You can be done with him, but don't get up in front of the media and pontificate about how great Jonathan Bolin is.
Well, I mean, when you make the trade for Bolin,
Bolin is not fixing our problems.
No, but when you make the trade, I get it that day. You're, hey, we got the. But yes, he's not fixing your problems. But that trade to me is insignificant to the problems they have.
It might be insignificant to you, but to me, it's a symbolic.
The symbolic
moment.
thing was that Strahm they felt was becoming a malcontent, so we had to get him out of here.
My symbolic thing was that was one of the moves you lauded this offseason was moving on from Strahm, getting Bolin, adding Garcia, releasing Castellanos. You were lauding these moves, and then you got Thompson and Dombrowski getting up for the media saying, well, we're 25% different. We're a good club. When anyone with two eyeballs knows it's basically the same team as last year.
No, listen, the lineup on Saturday, I think it was, or Sunday, I don't know which day it was. Turner, Schwarber, Harper, Bohm, Realmuto, Stott, Garcia, Sosa, Marsh. There's not one baseball fan out there that would look at that lineup and say, that team right there, that's a dangerous team.
Exactly. And that's where my question to you, Mike, is we've been talking about Dombrowski to open this segment. Where does the owner come into this?
I actually am glad you said that, because my tweet that I put out over the weekend that has gotten a ton of response, and if my computer actually worked, I would be able to read it for you. But, you know,
I can try to pull it up on my phone if you want.
That's not going to help. Let's see. I'll pull it up on my phone. So my tweet this weekend, when I saw the lineup that had JT Realmuto hitting in the 5-hole, I said, Dave Dombrowski should be embarrassed that he came back with this lineup. The only person who should be more embarrassed is John Middleton for either A, allowing him, or B, not willing to spend to better this lineup. So yes, John Middleton deserves a ton of the problem here because he is okaying these moves. He's okaying Max Kepler. You remember last year I said, I want to sit in on the room when Dave Dombrowski said, hey, I need $10 million. For what? I need to sign Max Kepler. For what? He's a left-handed bat. And John Middleton said, okay, Dave, I trust you. Here you go. Here's $10 million. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. He came in and said, hey, we got rid of Kepler. I need that $10 million that you just gave Kepler. I need another $10 million. For what? I need Adolis Garcia. And shame on me for saying yes again.
But part of the thing to me also is, Mike, Middleton has always kind of positioned himself as a fan. He's an owner who's also a fan, right? As a fan, don't you have to go into that office and be like, look, Dave, I got to ask you as a fan of this team, what are you doing?
100%. That's why I said,
don't talk about the business side. Just talk about the baseball side.
You should be embarrassed if you're Dave Dombrowski that you even have to ask for the money because you failed finding someone, and because you failed the last time, I have to ask again. So you should be embarrassed to be Dave Dombrowski to ask, and you now have to be embarrassed to be John Middleton for accepting and saying, you know what, you've asked for it, I'll give you $10 million. Here you go. At what point are you John Middleton? Do you say, Dave, I don't want to see this group back. I don't know what you have to do. That's your job. But I'm telling you, if you bring this group of guys back here, you're fired. So I don't care what you do. Find a different way. Get me some other guys in here because these are nice guys. We had a lot of good times with them. I don't want you to bring these guys back again. That's on him because somehow Dave Dombrowski convinced him this is the right group of guys. This is the way we're going to go. We're going to stick it out with this group of guys. $15 million I need for JT Realmuto. I need $10 million for Adolis Garcia. I need $22 million for Brad Keller. Keep signing the deals. Hey, aren't you the same guy that convinced me that Trey Turner was worth $300 million? Where's my ROI on that? At what point are you a businessman and you say, I'm not getting the ROI? Got a lot of text messages. 2 o'clock hour brought to you by the law office of Craig A. Altman.
Listen, you don't want the Dave Dombrowski of lawyers defending you if something happens to you. A car accident, a slip and fall, maybe a workplace incident. Maybe, just maybe over Memorial Day weekend, you had a bit of a mishap. Maybe you were driving around the shore and somebody ran into you, right? You're embarrassed about it. Don't be embarrassed. Call 856-327-8899. Get the tough lawyers who can handle the tough cases. Don't let the guy with gray hair on television who tells you how great he is help you win your case. You don't want Dave Dombrowski helping you in the courtroom. You want the law offices of Craig A. Altman on Delsey Drive in Vineland, backed by a law firm that knows how to win. 856-327-8899 or visit them online at craigaltmanlaw.com.
Phillies mailbag. Frank answers your questions. Coming up next.
You're listening to the Sports Bash with Mike Gill
And if you're not down with that, we got 2 words for you.
on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
2:33. Frank closes Phillies mailbag. I see all your texts. I'll try my best to get to all of them and react to them coming up here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. 609-403-0973 on the White Horse RV text board. Frank Close, of course, our Phillies mailbag each and every Tuesday right here on the Sports Bash. He answers your Phillies mailbag questions. And the Phillies did win last night. They did it, though, on 3 hits. It's Major League. It's all we got was 3 hits. You can't say that. I mean, it's just, Frank, at what point do you look in the mirror and say, we've got to do something different? I know they won last night, so it shouldn't be. We're not looking at the game. We're just looking at the big picture of 50 games. What set me off the other day is you got a lineup that has JT Realmuto hitting in the 5-hole. There's no way on God's green earth that anybody that follows baseball thinks a team that has JT Realmuto hitting 5th is winning anything. So at what point does something change? How do they make something differ with this lineup that we all know since 2022, 2023, 2024, and 2025 has not been good enough? When does that decision come? And from who?
That's a great question, Mike. I mean, they are not going to squeeze any more water out of this rock. I mean, I don't think that there's anything that they can do with the players on the roster to generate more offense than they already are. I mean, against lefties, they are absolutely putrid. Granted, there's not a lot of good right-handed hitters out there in Major League Baseball completely, but I think what you let yourself get fooled by, Alec Boehm, putrid start, putrid April, hot for a little bit, and you fool yourself into thinking, okay, maybe he's a solution, and then he gets cold again. So they gotta change up some pieces here. I don't know how else to say it, but the problem is there's just not a lot out there. And then they bring Otto Kemp back up, and he doesn't even start against the lefty. I don't understand why he's on the roster. So they need players that are outside this organization, and that's easier said than done because teams aren't trading yet. A lot of teams are still in this race, even if they're deluded into thinking that they are. So nobody's making a trade right now. It's really, really difficult to pick up pieces from outside the organization. I don't have any particular solutions on how to do it. Maybe you can raid San Francisco, who's already made a trade out there, but they got to get some other pieces in here.
Frank, Michael wants to know how much say does Trey Turner have in where he plays? Is it time to do what's best for the team? This is everything. I saw you tweet this out too. When he struggles at the plate, he struggles in the field. He had an error yesterday. On a routine ground ball hit to him, he just boots it. But the whole Trey Turner experience right now, this one's coming to a head big time because last year he wins the batting title, and that kind of kept people a little quiet, but I wasn't all that impressed with his season last year. And now he's been awful. I mean, he's borderline almost not playable. If anybody else had his numbers, you'd be talking about you have to get him out of the lineup. So what do you say to Michael's question? Not this Michael, the Michael that answered the question.
This is a very tough one, right? He's batting just .221. Yes, coming off the National League batting title.
Which was an embarrassment, by the way.
Well,
304 to say that I won the batting title. He should be embarrassed to even accept that award.
Well, I don't know what to say. If the rest of the league is not hitting either, then he was the best of the worst, I guess. But no, he had a good enough season last year. And for me, if you look at the numbers offensively and defensively, look, 608 OPS, 277 on base percentage. You can't do that in bat leadoff in Major League Baseball. And defensively, I actually looked up his defensive runs saved. He's in the bottom 5 at shortstop. Interestingly, the ones were C.J. Abrams of the Nationals, which you might expect. But Xander Bogaerts, so you're watching this week with San Diego, he is profiling worse. Brooks Lee of the Minnesota Twins, and actually the worst in baseball defensive run saved wise is J.P. Crawford of the Seattle Mariners. But he's in the bottom 5 in baseball, and 6 errors now. He had 8 all of last season. And yes, I think that he's bringing his poor play at the plate into the field. I think last year is a good indication. When it's going well at the plate.
C.J. Abrams has also got a 379 on base, a 925 OPS, 12 home runs, and he's hitting 288.
Yeah, you can find
in today's world, he might as well be hitting 370.
Right. He's making up for it at the plate, but the Nationals honestly probably have to find another position for Abrams. But, for the Phillies, they don't really have another real option. I mean, Aiden Miller is not coming up anytime soon, right? So the circumstances that he just came off the batting title, had a better year defensively last year, he's just going to have to get this right. He's probably not too far removed from the good play that he might be able to get some of this back. But here's what I would do. I would just say put Edmundo Sosa at shortstop for a couple days, give Trey Turner the break like Alec Boehm recently had, and just see if watching a little bit will help him get his head back on. So I don't know if another standing ovation is going to help, like somebody on X suggested to me yesterday. But he is better than this.
I saw this thing about giving him a reset like he did to Boehm. You can't reset the whole damn team. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Everybody needs a 2-day reset from this team.
Well, you know what? Pick your spot. I mean, I think Turner particularly needs it. Just the fact that he looked that loss at I mean, he had that one error, but another play that he kind of botched that too. It didn't count as an error. This was all in the first inning, and you're just watching this thinking it's all hitting ahead. That this is a new almost low for Turner in his career.
And Frank, I mean, people keep asking, what do you do with the leadoff spot? Do you move somebody else there? Now, the other option for a little while was like, hey, why don't you put Crawford in the leadoff? Well, he's down to 235. I mean, so he's not even hitting. You can't hit Marsh really in the leadoff spot. I mean, I guess you could if you want to put Turner in the 2-hole because you then have 3 lefties in your top 4 in the lineup. Would you be willing to try or go back to Schwarber at leadoff, go Turner 2, maybe Harper 3 and Marsh 4? Then you have Marsh hitting 4th, though, against lefties. That's another problem is that one of your best 3 hitters, Marsh, can't hit left-handers.
Yeah, they need more right-handers in this lineup. I think that's basically what it's going to come down to. And I know we were talking about this last week. I mean, right-handed bats just really aren't out there. Well, I did come up with one for you, Mike, though, and this wasn't in my mailbag, but I'll just throw it in right now. One potential right-handed bat that you might be able to get is Matt Chapman of the San Francisco Giants. Giants are maybe making some moves, already traded their starting catcher. I would keep an eye on Matt Chapman. I think he's somebody who's kind of having a little bit of a down year, but might be able to help the Phillies more than what they're getting from the right side. So I would vote for looking for somebody maybe like a Matt Chapman who has a 275 average against lefties. Maybe he's somebody you take a look at just because I know the Giants are open for business.
Ed wants to know, should the Phillies just concede the NL East there, or what's the mentality of where this team is now that we've passed Memorial Day?
Look, I mean, the Phillies started out 9-19, and at that time they were 10.5 games behind the Braves. Today they're 9 games behind the Braves, even though they went on that little tear under interim manager Don Mattingly. So if all that play was what it took to gain in 1.5 games, I don't think they're catching up to the Braves anytime soon. Could they do it eventually? Maybe, but I think right now the Phillies just need to focus on winning games, right? You look at the standings from last year when the season ended. 83 games was all it took for the Reds to win a wild card last year. 87 for the Guardians in the American League last year. Those are not numbers that the Phillies can't reach, right? I mean, I assume the Phillies are going to get some reinforcements at the trade deadline. They probably have a shot at that, but I think they just need to focus on their own play and then see where they land. They get to the playoffs. If they have the right pieces in place, because they've added some, then they compete in the playoffs. But I would not worry about the Braves. Phillies face them 7 times in September. Not going to see them again until September. Maybe they can take some games back, but I think right now you just got to focus on winning the games in front of you. You can't worry about the Braves.
All right, let's get to a couple more. We have some coming in on the text board, too, for Frank here. 609-403-0973. Mark says, Kerkering came in the 7th. He threw 15 pitches. 10 were strikes. He had 2 strikeouts. So he was throwing good. Why not let him pitch the 8th? I mean, so the Phillies bullpen definitely has some interesting questions here because you signed Keller to kind of be that 8th inning lockdown guy. He's been very inconsistent. Kerkering has been probably your most consistent bullpen guy.
Yeah, I think he's kind of working his way towards the back a little bit more, and rightfully so. He seems to fully have recovered from anything that might have been in his head after the way last season ended, but he's 2-0 with a 2.33 ERA. That's not bad at all. But I think the answer to this question is more not so much about Kerkering, but how relief pitchers are used and bullpens are made in this day and age. Kerkering, he's kind of been that back end, high leverage, high velocity arm. And so when you have those high velocity arms, usually your job is to be dispatched for an inning, get those outs, and then you exit. And in fact, I went through his entire career. His longest appearance was 1 2/3 innings, and he did that exactly once. Beyond that, he never went above 1 1/3. And usually that 1 1/3 is because he got an out at the end of the inning, then stayed for the next, or the other way around. Said, "Hey, can you come back out to get that one out?" But I think the reason is that the up and down required for pitchers. If you come in, you pitch that really good inning, then you just sit down while your team bats. And so you kind of lose some of that adrenaline a little bit there. So that's why usually they have the top few in that back, throwing hard, get through that inning, on to the next one. I think you can say the same thing for Alvarado and for Brad Keller and Yohan Duran. Same idea. They're not there really to pitch multiple innings, but if you combine the four of them, you get through the last few innings. Okay. I mean, it is kind of scarce that you have a multi-inning reliever anymore. I mean, Phillies might use a Tim Mesa or Tanner Banks at this point if they're stuck with the bullpen game situation, but for the most part, most relievers are not giving you multiple innings anymore. It's just get them in, high velocity, get the adrenaline pumping, get the outs, get out, be ready for the next day.
All right, Frank, a couple other quickies here. How much longer does the team ride with Garcia in right field? We saw a similar situation last year with Kepler. We thought, hey, after the trade deadline that he would be DFA'd. That never happened. He ended up platooning for the rest of the year. Kind of worked out for him. Him and Castellanos. What do you do with Garcia? How long do you stick with this? He's hitting 200, a 284 on base, 314 slug. 598 OPS. He's a basically no power, 4 homers, 15 ribbies. What do you do with Garcia?
Right now, they just need to take the good defense, because if they're not getting offense, I mean, what are you going to do? You going to throw Otto Kemp there? I mean, look on the roster. You got to play Garrett Stubbs against lefties and put him in the outfield. Like, this roster does not have anything that could and quite honestly, I don't even think Garcia is the weakest link right now. So
who gets that? Who gets that title?
Depends on the week, to be honest with you. They've been kind of sharing that responsibility. So, but no, the Phillies need pieces. They need people that can swing the bat. I mean, I hate to say it, but it's almost like as you were saying, like you're having Turner struggle, and then Bohm was struggling, and then. Of course, JT Realmuto at this age, he's not as productive. I mean, I don't know where to find right-handed at bats, or even who to throw out there in right field right now if I'm the Phillies. So they've got to get some infusion of talent. I mean, if Dave Dombrowski admitted to even having trade conversations early in the season. I mean, I don't know who's selling. Maybe the Giants. Maybe you do something. I don't know. Go get the Harrison Bader back or something. I don't know.
Who had a couple of grand slams this weekend, I think.
After a really rough start this year, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Again, if the Giants are open for business, maybe they'll take him. I don't know.
I understand, like, Bader, look, he had a great run here. That was a tough one because he had a great run here. He had not been the player that we saw here in any of his previous stops. But this team would probably look a lot better if you're talking about just defense, to put Bader in center, Crawford in left, and Marsh in right. That would probably be a much, just as good, if not it would be a better defensive team, because Bader's better in center than everybody. And then you would have Crawford probably better in left than he is in center. And then Marsh goes over to right. So it probably would have been smarter to say, you know what, Bader gave us a good run here. Let's just bring him back instead of trying to take a swing on a guy like Garcia. That's where I think they really outthought the room.
Yeah, well, I think quite frankly, Harrison Bader priced himself out of the Phillies. He was looking for way more money than anybody would have expected.
Well, what did he end up getting? 2 years, $20 million. So he got $10 million.
He got $10 million a year, but he was looking for 3 at 15 per. And then other teams were not biting, and the Phillies, who wanted to make sure that they had some right-handed hitting outfielder there because they weren't going to keep Castellanos. I guess they pivoted.
Well, let me ask you this. Castellanos last night said he would have came back and accepted the role that he was in at the end of last year. Would you have just been better off saying, okay, now that you know your role and you've accepted that role, you'll be the platoon right-handed bat and right? I know he hasn't hit a lick either, and he's not as good of an outfielder as Garcia. I guess you're going to bring Garcia in here. It should not have been the everyday guy. It should have been to be a platoon player, but you can't find the guy to match with him unless you go Marsh and Garcia. You guys play right field. they're not even playing Crawford against lefties now either, so that's another problem.
Can't do that. Yeah, no, I look, Garcia is exponentially better than Castellanos. So I don't care what Castellanos says now.
I agree.
The
I
clubhouse,
agree.
he didn't
But
fit in that clubhouse. He had to go.
You're paying Garcia $10 million. And I do agree with you here. So I'm just playing kind of like the other side of the coin here. Of he was willing to be a platoon player. Why spend $10 million on a guy who stinks, quite frankly?
And honestly, $10 million for 1 year, it's a gamble. You know, the Phillies knew that maybe if they rolled the dice, they would get more out of him than the Rangers had in previous years.
Yeah.
And then, we're seeing right now we're getting about the same. And, I assume based on his past performance, he's going to have some hot streaks, but now we're seeing some of his cold streaks.
All right, Frank Close, the Phillies back in action tonight. And, of course, we'll see what their lineup is. It should be out here. Actually, it's a West Coast game, so it probably won't be out by the time we're off the air tonight. They play 9:40 tonight. And, hey, you get Aaron Nola tonight. That should be fun. All right, Frank.
He's fared well there, so we'll see.
We'll talk to you next week, man.
Have a good one, Mike.
Frank Close's Phillies mailbag, of course, each and every week right here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. All right, coming up, we have the Phillies Fastball segment at 3 o'clock. Keith Smith's going to talk a little NBA. Dave Gallagher will talk some Phillies with us tonight. 254. A lot of text messages on the White Horse RV text board. Let me pick out a couple here that I can hit on real fast. I know our opening segment, we got people going. Mike loved the rant. Couldn't agree more. Pitching is solid, but those bats are horrendous. The chicks dig the long ball, but holy cow, can't rely on that every night. Huddy and Galloway. You know, Huddy, chicks dig the long ball. That commercial happened in like the 90s. Yeah, we're a little past that now. I don't know that chicks even know what the long ball is anymore. All right. So that chick dig the long ball, dig the long ball. I think that was happening during the steroid era. I'm sick of these nerds in the front office making baseball decisions. I'm sick and tired of it. If I wanted to go see guys strike out 5 times a game, I go to my nephew's little league game. It's embarrassing. That was pretty fun. 609-403-0973. I like that one. What else we got here? Mike Dombrowski keeps getting it passed because he's won 2 World Series. You and I and others have said it in the past that you can't move on because of his pedigree and history. Everything you're saying now is what both fans have been thinking. Lack of offense, 4 consecutive postseasons, right-handed power bat needed for years, salaries and long-term contracts make me sick. He's Maury, but gets a pass because of his former rings. Reset is the right term, Phil. In Brigantine. Yeah, Dombrowski's the kind of guy that, I mean, it's almost like he kind of decides when he just doesn't want to do it anymore. That's the way it goes. I just don't want to do this anymore. I'll move on because you almost can't embarrass a guy like that and just fire him in today's world. Like, I would like to see them make a trade just for the sake of making a trade. We're going to talk about that coming up at 3:30 in the NBA, where ESPN.com proposed a trade for one of the Sixers, very similar to a trade that I proposed about a week ago. Sports Bash is live on 97.3 ESPN. Coming up on the other side, it's our Phillies Fastball segment. Oscar's in today, no Jeff, so stick around. We'll do that coming up next on the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN. This hour of the show brought to you by the law offices of Craig A. Altman. All right, 3:01, time for the Phillies fastball. Look at the Phillies as they are in San Diego tonight. Aaron Nola gets the start. We'll talk about that. And our Phillies fastball is brought to you by Ventnor Social, the place to go to watch the Phils. Late night tonight, 9:40 start. We're going to be at Ventnor Social on June the 4th is the next time we're back there. So stop out and see us June 4th on Thursday, the 4th of June, and watch the Phillies day baseball. Plus the Phillies on the 4th. We'll be playing the Padres in Philadelphia, but tonight they're in San Diego, and we got a lot of Phillies to talk about. No Jeff today. Oscar's here, though. We got the Phillies fastball for you on the Sports Pass Live on 97.3 ESPN as we welcome Oscar Budijan, the former play-by-play voice of the Philadelphia Phillies Spanish broadcast, to the show. He is back with his insights as we take a look at this Phillies. Oscar, it is a struggling offense. Yes, they won last night, but they had 3 hits. Now, we are past Memorial Day, and I guess you got to start wondering, is this baseball team, is this a 500 team? Is this what we're watching, a 500 baseball team?
That's to me the biggest question. Mike, pleasure to hear. Welcome back, everybody, from Memorial Day weekend. Hope everyone had a great Memorial Day weekend. Look, Mike, it's a 27. I mean, we're at the third part of the season, and this team is 27-27. And when you start looking at pitching, we significantly have improved on pitching. Over the last week, just listen to this. Over the last week, we went from being 22nd in baseball to being 16 at a 4.06 ERA. Now both our starting pitching as well as our relief pitching are kind of in the middle of the pack after being way back. Our starting pitching is at 4.14. Our relief pitching is at 3.93, and our pitching is there. This tells me, look, baseball is about pitching now. I mean, when you start looking at trends, historical trends, you see where baseball is going toward pitching more than hitting, and it's a significant improvement. Our hitting, it is a flawed lineup outside of Schwarber and Harper. Turner has not done his part this year, and you look at March, you look at Alec Bohm. I mean, March significantly. I mean, when you look at Schwarber, Harper, and March, they've been the ones that have carried his offense. The rest of the lineup leave a lot to be desired, especially Turner at the top of the lineup, which is a big issue, and we need to address that.
Yeah, let's address that. There's a lot we need to address. Let's address the Turner thing here. I don't know that they have other options. I don't know how creative we can get with a lot of these. You know, the breaking point for me, Oscar, was this weekend when they hit JT 5th. And I said, all right, you can't write the name Real Muto in the 5-hole and think that that's a serviceable lineup. At what point do you, as Dave Dombrowski or John Middleton, say, I've got to do something different? I cannot put a lineup that has JT Realmuto hitting 5th, especially if my leadoff hitter is hitting in the 220s.
But what are your options, Mike? I mean, that is the reality. I think, look, you can play around Schwarber, you can play around Harper. I mean, when you look at the last week, just look at this number. So the last week, I mean, look, Harper is even on a slump. He's 4.14. I mean, with a 6.13 OPS. I mean, you got Garcia at 2.14. You look at Realmuto 3.14. Crawford is 0.14 over the last 5 games. I mean, look, nobody's hitting, Mike. I mean, that's the reality of it. I mean, if it wasn't because of the Schwarber home runs and Harper and both Schwarber getting hot in that series in Boston and particularly in the one in Pittsburgh, I mean, we would be talking significantly below 500 right now. And look, a lot of the same issues that we talked when we let Rob Thompson go, they continue. It is a flawed lineup. I mean, that is the reality of things. I'm going to give you a piece of good news on Turner. June, July, and August in his career has been the hottest months. His OPS have gone from being in the 700 to in June 827, 796 in July, 872 in August, and 880 in September and October. So hopefully, I mean, the numbers will carry on, and Turner will wake up one morning and suddenly starts hitting the way he's supposed to be hitting. We're getting closer to June, but I mean, that is the only hope that I see here. When you start looking at Alec Bohm, I mean, he hasn't done his part. I know he was hot 2 weeks or a week and a half ago. I mean, this over the last 5 games, 2 for 17, Alec Bohm. I mean, and the stat, I mean, it's at 764. He's been okay the last month, but this lineup leaves a lot to be desired. And look, Mattingly's just trying to move whomever is hot right now and trying to make something out of it.
Well, there's a lot there. And, of course, Trey Turner, 221, a 277 on base, 332 slug, a 608 OPS. I mean, quite frankly, Oscar, those aren't playable numbers. If his name was not Trey Turner with that contract, he wouldn't be in the lineup, except for the fact that they don't really have other options. You go back to Schwarber in the leadoff hole, try Trey Turner at number 2.
That's the only option that I see. That's the only option that I see.
That's it. Because some people – at the beginning, we're like, hey, what about Justin Crawford? You know, he's hitting 235 all of a sudden. I mean, and you don't even play him against lefties anymore. They got a lot of problems.
In May, okay, we're what, 26 days in May? His OPS is 578. So it's not, I mean, that he's not an option right now. I mean, look, we knew it was going to be a growing pains and a learning process. I mean, just like with Painter, and I think they're both doing good. They're doing their part. And the other thing, Mike, the platoon. I mean, can you platoon? You cannot platoon. Sosa cannot play left field. I mean, that's another big issue you have. I mean, right now, Kemp is not playable. Sosa is not playable. So you have your entire bench. And I know Jeff, our dear friend Jeff Kerr, sent out the OPSs for our bench. I mean, it's pretty scary.
Well, and Sosa, like, I know everybody likes Sosa, and he's a nice little spark plug. He's hitting 222 with a 256 on-base percentage, a 589 OPS. It's the classic, hey, if I start exposing him too much, this is the ROI. So Sosa now is almost not helping you out because you're playing him too much. It's a team that's short in so many different areas, Oscar. And you look at this weekend, you know, if you're a pitcher on this team right now, you have to be almost perfect. Otherwise, you're not winning. And guess what? That's what ended up happening in the series against Cleveland. You lose 1-0 and 3-1 because, quite frankly, you could not get any offense going. And the Cincinnati games, same problem. They got a big offensive problem, to which I wonder, Dave Dombrowski, at what point does Dave get mandated by somebody? Dave, we've watched this in 2022. 2023, 2024, 2025. You brought back the same group of guys in 2026. I'm telling you, you need to change something.
Look, you want to cry, Mike? I mean, because this is worth crying. Over the weekend, Christopher Sanchez, 8 innings, 0 runs allowed. He loses the game. Wheeler, he pitches 6 innings, no runs. He wins that game 3-0. And then Painter pitched probably, you could say, the best game he's pitched all year, 6 1/3 innings, allowing 2 runs. I mean, I'll take that any day of the week, and he loses the game 3-1. So you lost 2 out of 3 games against Cleveland when you were starting pitching 8, 6, and 6 1/3 inning, allowed only 2 earned runs the entire weekend. I mean, how can you lose 2 games like that? There's no way. I mean, there's no way.
And that brings up what I'm asking, Oscar, is at what point does somebody, ownership, Dombrowski doesn't seem that this is bothering him at all, to continue to watch this. Listen, you might say, well, what can they do? Sometimes you got to do something just to do something and make the example. They fired the manager, but you might have to say, listen, it's not the manager's fault. We all know that. I have to give the manager different guys. If he has these guys to keep plugging in, the result's going to be the same.
That's the issue of having such a high salary being paid to, at least in the offensive side, to 3 major players. I mean, in Turner, Schwarber, and Harper. Schwarber and Harper are delivering. Turner is not. You need to wait for Turner to come back to earth and start hitting the way he's hitting. He's somewhere in another planet that they don't know how to hit in that planet. I can tell you that. I mean, he's been absolutely awful. I mean, absolutely awful so far.
So this slumping offense, can it be fixed in the short term? What can they do with the group that they have? Do you say, listen, you got to change something up? We're going to try a new leader, because Don Mattingly has said, I can pick guys out of a hat. And I mean, he has insinuated that the batting lineup doesn't really make a big difference.
Look, the reality is there's nobody in the minors that you can bring up that would be a solution. in the short term. You can bleed Carlson, the guy they brought up, but he's not a hitter. He's more of a fielder. And look, he could maybe provide some much more experience than Otto Kemp. I mean, look, they're not even playing Otto Kemp against lefties. I mean, that says it all to me. I mean, look, if you brought Otto Kemp is to develop him, that's a reason why you didn't bring a right-handed experienced right-handed bat, and you're suffering because of it. And look at the numbers for Garcia. I mean, what, over the last month, 460 OPS. I mean, it's like, that's unplayable, Mike. His defense is the ones that is keeping him there. I think it was what he's for the last 17 at bats. I mean, and like 4 hits, and his last home run was in the beginning of May. I mean, look, this is supposed to be one of your power bats, and he's not delivering. And this is such a streaky team. And if you tell me if there's a solution, I don't think there's a solution. I think the only solution you have is with the guys you have here. You need to get them going. Are you going to do? They're not going to fire Kevin Long. We know that. I mean, the Schwarber. That's Schwarber's. I mean, personal. What is it called? Batting coach. I mean, it's like you can't. I mean, so do you bring somebody from the minors to help in with hitting? Look, the reality is the biggest issue with this team is it's not Schwarber and Harper. Those are your power bats. You need to get on base. Turner OPS is on the floor. I mean, it's just incomprehensible. I mean, look at all the OPSs or the on-base percentages for a lot of the hitters on this team. Ramuto should be hitting more toward right field. Crawford should be finding ways to get on base. I mean, the same thing with Stott. I mean, it's the reality, and you don't have. Look, the reality is these are the cards that were dealt, and these are the cards that we're going to have to play. And the bigger question, we go back to the bigger question we asked in the beginning: is this a 500 team or not? I say no because of our pitching, but the way our hitting is, you probably would be a below 500 hitting team because you only have 2 hitters that can hit, and the other 7 guys are not contributing.
Listen, at the beginning of the year, had this team winning about 98 games because of the pitching, and the pitching only. Not because I thought this offense was going to help out, but I figured the offense couldn't be any different than last year. But quite frankly, Oscar, this offense is worse than last year's offense because Trey Turner is nowhere near the same. Yes, Marsh is better, but he was pretty good the second part of last year. Bohm has been terrible. Stott has been bad. Garcia is basically a wash with Castellanos. Real Muto is a downgrade from where he was a year ago. Your platoon situations are a disaster. Crawford, he's kind of bottomed out now. So, yes, the offense is actually worse than last year.
Well, the number says it. I mean, you're 27th in OPS in all of baseball. I mean, you're 22 in run scores at 4 runs per game. I mean, you're in the bottom third of the league. Now, the only hope that I gave you is last year they were not hot. In the first half of the year, we were 13th in runs per game at 4.56. Listen to the numbers, right? This year is 4.00. Last year in the first half, we were 4.53, 56, and we were 13th in baseball. That's a half a run per game than we have. And then we got hot in the second half of the year and we scored 5.15 runs, but that was when Bader was here. And look, I don't know if the trading deadline is coming too soon, but the reality is, Mike, we're like 7 weeks away from the trading deadline. So we're very far away. So that you have to play with the cards that you have right now and try to do the best. And the other thing that I'll give you is we were 18th in baseball with 102 home runs in the first half of the year, and we hit 110 home runs in the second half. And we went from 18th to second. So hopefully they get hot in June and July with the ballpark, the heat, the humidity. Harper, Schwarber continue to do their magic.
Well, we know when they're going well that they go well, but when they don't, this is what you get. And the problem is, I think we have devalued batting average so much that we look at a guy hitting 233 and that just doesn't matter. Well, he does this, and this. But in the big picture, if you are a 233 hitter, that means it's only 23% of the time are you getting a hit. And you're basically hoping that of the 23% of those hits, 15% of them are home runs. Otherwise, You're not a good hitter. And we have devalued batting average so much that we're like, well, the guy's hitting 230. Who cares? He's on base 38% of the time. That's great because everyone's pitching around you because they don't want you to hit because they know no one else around you can hit. So the batting average thing, I think, is a big problem for this team where I think John Clark tweeted the other day, the Phillies had, 2 guys in the entire lineup hitting over 240? That's a joke. That's an embarrassment. It's an embarrassment.
You want to hear? Listen to this stat, Mike. I ran a comparison of 2002, and I wanted to go a couple of decades before so we can create enough distance. In the year 2000, the batting average was 270. In 2026, it's 239. So it's an 11% decrease in batting average. Run scores per game, 515 to 437, a 15% decrease in runs scored. And ERAs have gone from 470 to about 405. So you can see that the league, because of the evolution of pitching and how hard they're throwing, look, there is 31 more strikeouts right now. There were 6.5 strikeouts per game in the year 2000. In 2026 is 8.5. That's a 31% increase in the strikeout. So you can see the velocity and what they're doing in pitching has significantly is doing a much better job. And you would say, wow, you know what? We're hitting more home runs. Yes, surprise, surprise. We're hitting less home runs than we hit in the year 2000.
It's a
2.17 to 105.
It's a domino effect
Yeah.
of there's this, the launch angle swing, the hitters went that direction. Well, then the pitcher said, okay, well, then we're going to counter with this. And the hitters have not countered back.
Exactly.
They're still swinging with launch angle. And that era is gone. You've got to move on. You need a new hitting coach, man. You got to get out of that launch angle because these pitchers are carving you up. Yeah, the true elites, they have figured out how to do it. But you can't teach your number 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, all hit the same. And look, John Clark, the post is actually Brandon Marsh and Bryce Harper are the only 2 Phillies regulars that are hitting above 236. 236. They're the only 2 in the lineup. So I don't know what you do with this particular group.
I'm more worried more than batting average is on base percentage. And one of the interesting stats, the Phillies are 25th in baseball in base on balls at 8.1. One thing that you see in the Cleveland Guardians, in the Tampa Bay Rays, in the Milwaukee Brewers that are first place teams, okay, is that they are in the top 3, the top 5 of the base on balls. And that's one thing this team needs to emphasize more. You need to get on base. And that's the biggest issue. We don't have enough runners on base when the big bats come to bat because our hitting with runners in scoring position is not bad at all. It's in the top third of the league. So we need to do a much better job getting people on base. And a perfect example is that base on balls at 8.1%. We're 25th in baseball.
By the way, Phillies starters 1.84 ERA over the last 2 weeks. It's the best in baseball, but it's not helping them win more games. Yeah. The Trey Turner thing, Oscar, you paint a bright picture for June and July and what he's done in the past. But I mean, at what point did the Phillies? How long do they give him before they have to say, okay, we've got to do something at the top of the lineup? Because quite frankly, his defense isn't great. Whereas Garcia, Don Mattingly agreed. He admitted the only reason he's out there is because we don't have a better option and he plays good defense. Turner doesn't even play good defense, but they don't have another option. So at what point do you say, I can't hit you first, I'm going to have to move you?
I mean, to me, the only because of his speed, because of his experience, I think the only thing you could do is just, switch Schwarber and Turner. That's your only option. I mean, Alec Bohm is already, look at the last week. I mean, Alec Bohm is already back to his old 500 OPS. So he's not the answer. And you have him behind Harper. And now Harper starts getting into a slump because he's probably not getting protected. And you get into this catch-22. I mean, it's just a very, very complicated situation. And those are the cards. Those are the cards that you have, Mike, from now until then. And even there is a massive, I was listening to Matt Gelb the other day on one of the things that he did. his podcast, and basically one of the things that he said was that there's an epidemia on right-handed bats outfielders. I mean, their OPS average for the year is the worst, I think, in history at 698. So is there a solution out there? There's probably not a solution. I mean, we would have if we get Bader for the second half of the year from the Giants, that might be one of your best options, even though he signed a multi-year deal.
I was just gonna say, I know that Bader wanted a multi-year deal and the Phillies didn't want to do that. They were in a tough spot. Bader had a really good 50-game run here, but his career, he has not really lived up to what he did here in Philly. But would you have been better off if you're looking at defensively, having him play center field, have Crawford play left field, and Marsh play right field, and then you don't pay the $10 million to Garcia. Instead, you pay the $10 million to Bader because he essentially got a 2-year, $20 million deal.
Yeah.
Now, that may have been something where maybe he just liked it here. Maybe he was comfortable here. Maybe he would have been more productive here. But maybe that was the way that they could have looked at. He's hitting 175, by the way.
Yeah, but that's what I'm talking about. To me, it was less about bringing Bader and finding maybe an experienced right-handed bat like Andujar or Ruffnider, the guy that went to Seattle. Even though, I mean, those are professional, experienced right-handed hitters that hit lefties. I mean, I think we only have one more lefty in this series. I mean, I think is the one from the Dodgers. That we're going to get. I mean, the Padres do not have a left-hander starting pitching, so we should be okay for now. But the reality is this team, look, other than Sosa, I mean, and of course you're going to be replacing Ramuto with Stubby at one point and another game with March. This is not playable. I mean, outside of Sosa, you would bring him in for a start against a lefty. I mean, it's just not playable. And I was thinking, Mike, should we sit down just like we said Alec Bohm when he woke up? Should we sit down Trey Turner for a couple of games so he can kind of relax a little bit more and try to think? Maybe that's an option. I mean, but Turner needs a day off.
Oscar, there's going to be a line at the door saying, can I have 2 days off too? Can I have 2 days off too? By the way, our old buddy Walker Buehler starts tomorrow for the Padres. So there's a guy that you'll face tomorrow tonight. It's Randy Vasquez, who's had a really good season. It's Nola tonight, and we know that Nola has really struggled.
Nola, I got his numbers here. He has a 3.26 ERA against the Padres in 10 games, 3-4 record. And at Petco, he's pitched before. I remember broadcasting one of his games there at Petco. He was scoreless, and he lost the game in the 10th inning, believe it or not. He's 2-2 with a 3.29 there at Petco. So, and Valdez has only pitched once against the Phillies, and he has a 12.46 ERA. So there is an opportunity. Mike, there to do some damage. So hopefully our bats can wake up today. And remember, I want to remind people, Foley, the Philly Sports Shop is open. Mike, it's in 2206 South Street in Philadelphia with our friend John Foley. He's always supporting what we're doing here. And you can always go to his website, FoleyOnSouth.com, and buy some great stuff. I was there on Friday, and he has a Mike Schmidt bat that looks beautiful. To have Mike Schmidt baseballs and all the wonderful things that you can get there in his Foley's, the Phillies Sports Shop. Thank you, Mike.
All right, man. Phillies Fastball is back again tomorrow right here. Our buddy Jeff will be back with us. Phil's late night tonight. We'll be back to recap it all right here on Phillies Fastball. Thanks, Oscar.
Take it easy, guys. Go Phils.
All right. There's Oscar. And, of course, Oscar and Jeff back for more Phillies Fastball tomorrow right here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. Our Phillies Fastball, it's brought to you by our friends over at Ventnor Social. Don't forget, join us at Ventnor Social on the 4th, and you can enter to win a trip to see the Phillies play in Baltimore against the Orioles. Stop out, free to enter. Just stop out, say hello. There'll be a drop box there. Put your name in the drop box, and you can win that trip to Baltimore to see the Phillies and the Orioles on July 31st. We'll be giving that away on July 29th from Ventnor Social. All right, when we come back, a proposed trade for Paul George. Keith Smith will join us, and the Knicks are going to the finals. Who will they face Couple Thunder could be out tonight. Couple Thunder players could be out tonight. Oh boy, can we see a Spurs Knicks rematch? I feel like my high school days. We'll dive into some NBA next with Keith Smith. All right, 3:32. The Knicks are going to the finals. Who will they play? Find out with the Thunder and the Spurs tonight on 97.3 ESPN. You can listen to the Western Conference Finals. We got a lot of hoops still to be played and possibly some high-level stuff. I don't know. I think everybody just assumed it was going to be Thunder or Spurs winning this whole thing, but if the Knicks change people's mind, Keith Smith covers the NBA, SpotTrack.com. He's here to talk a little hoops, and the NBA Finals not quite set. But the Knicks, are we looking at this team a little differently, Keith? We think this Knicks team will not be the Eastern Conference sacrificial lamb that many people thought would be coming out of the East.
Yeah, I already thought that they had a chance to be competitive. Now I think they have a chance to win the finals. You don't do what they've done over the last 11 games, which if anybody's missed the stat, it's the most dominant 11-game stretch in NBA history, not just in the playoffs, but playoffs, regular season, anything. Nobody has ever won games by the amount of points that the Knicks have won by over the last 11 games. Everybody can scream, oh, look who they were playing. I don't care. When you're beating teams by 30 points, it doesn't matter who you're playing. You're playing pretty good basketball. And I think they've got interesting matchup, challenges, but also some advantages against both Oklahoma City and San Antonio. So I think the finals is going to be absolutely awesome.
In a world where San Antonio, let's face it, they lost games. They got the first pick. They had third pick. They've drafted very well. They've hit Oklahoma City was bad for a couple of years. They hit some draft picks. They made a big trade, obviously, to get Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. That helped them out. How have the Knicks done it differently than the way that a lot of teams are trying to do it in the NBA?
Yeah, I think what they're a good example of, there's no one right way to build an NBA team. There's multiple ways to do it. There's certainly lots of wrong ways to do it too, and the Knicks have a lot of experience with that as well. But with this group, what they hit on was when they started it by getting Jalen Brunson, and it was a contract that a lot of people were pretty critical of at the time because it was they're going to pay him over $25 million a year, and we're even sure that he's as good as what he showed in that one playoff run with Luka Doncic. Well, yeah, absolutely, he's that good, and he's been great. And then they made the trade for OG Anunoby, a couple of years ago. That was a pretty good value trade. Then they go out and they trade basically all their draft capital for Mikal Bridges. And then when the Timberwolves decided they wanted to kind of break things up, they were ready to pounce, and they got Karl-Anthony Towns. Josh Hart was a good value acquisition. And then they've done some nice stuff with drafting and developing guys like Mitchell Robinson is really, really good. Miles McBride has been good. They kind of rehabbed Landry Shamet and got him back on track. So it's a really good example of the way they've built out that roster from top to bottom. It's a roster that has really good functional depth. You're not going to hold them up against like Oklahoma City and say, oh, well, Oklahoma City's got 12 guys that can play. Yeah, but you don't play 12 guys. You only need about 8 or 9, and the Knicks have the 8 or 9 that they trust to be on the floor at any point in these playoff games.
Keith Smith with us here, talking a little NBA and just the landscape. The Cavs have announced they're going to bring Kenny Atkinson back for their third year. It seemed almost like people can't even believe that that's a possibility. James Harden, it sounds like he's going to opt out of his deal and then work with the Cavs. Where have I heard this story before? Hey, I'll work with you to try to get free agents. You're a liar. No, you're a liar. I mean, this is bizarre. I don't even know how to describe this question, Keith, but I feel like the NBA needs a total reset. Like, we're paying Paul George $54 million. I don't know what James Harden's going to get. Guys are making such exorbitant amount of money that we all are like, all right, James Harden, like, you can't win with him. I don't want him, but he's got to play in the league. It's like he's good enough to play. Like, where does the league go from here? Like, can they handle what is happening with the way things are going on, where it seems that there's such a small group of guys that are like good enough to win with, but you have to pay these other guys even though you don't want to? How do these teams continue to like manage the financial restraints and problems that this is bringing these teams?
Yeah, these are the questions that are being asked. Even like, look at Detroit. Jalen Duren is a free agent.
I have a big question about Duren I want to get into, by the way. I'm glad you brought him up.
Yeah, but he's going to make a good chunk of money, and question for Detroit is going to be, all right, we have Cade Cunningham on a max. That's fine. No-brainer max guy. He's great. But Duran, if you pay him too much, all of a sudden now we're back into the corner with these two max guys. Where do we go? If you're a team like Cleveland, you already have Mobley on a max. You have Mitchell on a max. Jared Allen's contract jumps up to $30 million next year. Now you go with Harden, you're going to be right in the same place you were expense-wise and all of that. And I think if you're James Harden, what does feel a little bit different this time around is he's a few years older. I think he realizes hey, the Clippers were trying to trade him for a while, and there was not this 10-team bidding war to try to get him. I think teams have kind of said, all right, we know where you're going to go with James Harden and what you're going to be in the Cavs, or they were willing to kind of jump in that relationship. So now you're in this position where you absolutely have to be careful. The days of just hand everybody a max and give this guy a max and give this guy a max and this guy, you can't do that anymore because with the apron rules the way they are and all that, it's just too hard to build out the rest of your team unless you absolutely hit it very, lucky with timing and then have great development like Oklahoma City did or what San Antonio's done. But even those teams are going to start facing some of those questions themselves over the next couple of years too.
Duran, you brought him up. I brought him up last week. I hear what you're saying. It's like I'm Detroit. I just watched these playoffs, and I'm thinking, well, I don't want to give this guy a max deal. So then he's saying, well, my regular season, I deserve a max deal. I don't know. Did he end up third team All NBA? I didn't end up seeing
it. He did, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So he's a third team All NBA player. What do you do in that situation? So I asked, hypothetically, hey, if you're Detroit, you just take Paul George and Joel Embiid and do a sign-in trade just because Duran's not. I mean, I don't know. We're having fun here, but what do you do in that situation? I don't want to pay Jalen Duran. That doesn't mean he stinks. It's just, hey, dude, I don't want to pay you what your contract says I have to pay you. I want to give you $10 million. You okay with that? And even $10 million sounds ridiculous. But how do these teams manage that?
Yeah, and so let's use Duran as the example because he made All-NBA, which was earned. I know a lot of people are screaming and yelling about it now, but he was really good in the regular season, and people have to remember, I know the regular season ended, like a month and a half ago, but these are regular season awards. These you don't factor in, well, he stunk in the playoffs. The votes were tallied, a few days after the regular season ended. So in this case with Jalen Duran, what you're looking at is he is now eligible for a 30% of the cap max because that's what happens when you make All-NBA. So that's going to be where his agent, has to start is, hey, this is what we're eligible for. Give him that max. And if I'm the Pistons, I'm going to be, I'm not even sure I wanted to give you a 25% of the cap max after the way the playoffs went because that's, you're talking the difference in first-year salary, $41 million. The other one's about 45. Total difference is about 287 over 5 years against 239 against 5 years. So what you're looking at, if you're the Pistons, is you're going to say, hey, we feel a lot better if we want to go where we want to go together with you and Cade Cunningham and then building a really great roster around you guys. I'd feel a lot better saying, how's $35 million a year? Well, we knock it down. We don't, that's an average of 35. And that's going to be, I know that even sounds like a huge number, but that's nowhere close to a max. So now you're starting at a much lower number and you're able to say, all right, yeah, let's go ahead and do that, where it goes. But this is going to be the most fascinating, negotiation we've seen in a while because no player who has been eligible for a max contract coming off has not gotten it. So that this is going to be, kind of precedent setting in a lot of ways. And it's one of these, again, these issues these teams face now where you've got to kind of figure this out because you can't just give everybody, you can't be Oprah and you get a max and you get a max and you get a max because otherwise next thing you know, you're like, man, we are, way over the second apron and draft picks are being frozen, can't improve the team at all. And now we're just stuck.
So is he a sign and trade possibility? Like the Pistons say, we know what we saw. We need more offense. We'll sign and trade him. Is that, how they possibly back themselves out of this?
I mean, it's certainly possible, but the challenge is you're going to have then another team that's willing to give them, a big contract. Because
that's why I say with Philadelphia, I don't need you to be 20-10 because we have Maxey and Edgecombe, where in Detroit, they need another scorer. So it's hey, take Paul George. How's that sound for you?
Yeah, I think the challenge is from Jalen Duren. I'm like, what am I going to do with Joel Embiid? Like, I don't want to be his backup. Like he, and if
Well,
I'm
theoretically,
Duren,
I say play
you're
Paul
moving
George.
him
You
too.
take you take George or Embiid. You could pick
Got
which
it.
you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I think if I'm Jalen Duren though, my point is I'm still like okay, great. I want a lot of money. If I'm Philadelphia, I'm like, man, I know I don't need you to necessarily score a ton. This guy's not a great defensive player. He is a great rebounder usually, but he's not a great defensive player. So all of a sudden, I'm looking at him like, all right, am I paying him just to rebound? Because I don't need him to score. But like, if what am I doing paying a guy $40 million a year just to rebound?
Crazy.
That's where I think it gets tough. So I think the way it's going to play out is we're going to see this kind of break the trend of guy getting a max, and it's just going to be him and Detroit kind of come together where it is, all right, let's come together on a number. I said 185, which would be an average of 37 million. Still gets him a big number, but it's well short of even that $239 million max, and that gives the Pistons a lot more wiggle room to build out the roster around him and Cunningham. Because the other thing Detroit has to figure out is Asar Thompson is coming up as well, and there's just the teams that need centers right now. The list is not that big, and the ones that want to pay a guy a ton of money is even smaller.
Oklahoma City is favored tonight. They could be without a couple of key guys. They got rocked the other night. So how does game 5 look in your mind?
Yeah, for a team that is so good and so deep, what they don't have is a ton of on-ball creation. It's a lot of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and then what? When Jalen Williams is out of the lineup and A.J. Mitchell's out of the lineup. Their next best guy is Jared McCain, and as much as Jared McCain has been really good for them, he's also had these games where he's just kind of disappeared and hasn't been able to get going. And I think what's happened is when he is the primary guy, the Spurs have locked in, said, all right, SGA's off the floor, locked in on McCain, turn that water off, and this offense is going to struggle. When McCain's out there with SGA or he's out there with Williams or he's out there with Mitchell, all of a sudden it's like, man, this guy's tough to deal with as a secondary creator. They continue to list Jalen Williams as questionable. I'm guessing there's some shenanigans going on there because I don't see how, like, he's not even close to playing in these games, but he's questionable. A.J. Mitchell, I believe, is already out, so that's going to be tough. So I think the Spurs have a real chance here to kind of go out there, and if they can get it done, now what they're going to be thinking about is get it done, and then we're going home for Game 6 with an absolutely rabid crowd behind us. It's been one of the best crowds we've seen in the playoffs. But the Thunder are the champs, right? SGA is so good. If they at home, if they're getting a few more calls than they've gotten on the road, then I think all of a sudden, it'll go. I mean, this is, that's my long answer saying it can go either way, and I can't wait to watch it because this has been an absolutely awesome series so far.
Sure has been. And you can listen to Game 5 tonight right here on 97.3 ESPN. Keith Smith always does a great job in giving us some NBA conversation at Keith Smith NBA. And, of course, the NBA Finals right here on 97.3 ESPN. Keith, always a pleasure, man.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me.
As always. And we'll the finals and said there's a breaking point here for some of these teams. All right, coming up on Sportsmanlike Moment of the Day, Adam Caplan has today's football at 4. Josh's jerky, he's in all week for Earnshaw, who's on vacation, and Dave Gallagher talks some Phillies with us tonight at 5 o'clock. Don't go away. More Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN.
I think Bryce Harper's a genius. I think he's ahead of the curve. As long as you're not sharing your toothpaste with anyone else, if it's a personal toothpaste, I think this is brilliant.
Why?
I can't tell you the amount of times that I've put toothpaste on the toothbrush, run it under the water, and the toothpaste falls off the toothbrush. I'm just saying, putting it in your mouth, making sure all the toothpaste goes in there, making sure you get a good solution in there, squeak it around a little bit, and then use your toothbrush and brush off your teeth. I think it's brilliant by Bryce Harper.
Chris Canty said that on Unsportsmanlike, the Unsportsmanlike Moment of the day. So apparently Bryce Harper went viral over the weekend because he puts his toothpaste in his mouth and not on the brush. Is this something new that people haven't done before? I do this all the time.
I didn't know you did this. I didn't know this was a thing either.
Well, it varies. All right, I'll tell you why it varies. Because I have a toothbrush that's like, it's like a
Mechanical.
It spins, electric one, right? And the head on the thing is very tiny.
Right.
It's not like an old school toothbrush.
Right. You can't put the toothpaste on it.
Right. So a lot of times what I'll do is you put the toothpaste in your mouth first, and then you put the water on the toothbrush, and then utilize the water on the toothbrush to kind of get it foaming up and ready to go.
Right.
So I can relate to Harper here pretty easily. Now, if I had the old school toothbrush, I would put it on the toothbrush like that. But when they got these newer toothbrushes that have the smaller heads, not enough toothpaste for my liking.
All right. So a couple things here. One, I think for people like me and Canty, we just never thought of the idea of having the electric toothbrush to do this with. So I guess you and Harper are just ahead of the curve at this point.
There's also been times where, like, I might be at a place where I didn't have a toothbrush.
Fair.
And I just put the toothpaste in my mouth and kind of almost like use your tongue and swizzle it around and utilize it in that capacity.
Okay.
You might have had, for whatever reason, you're not at your house, you don't have a toothbrush. You just put the toothpaste in your
maybe
mouth.
I'm just the weirdo who keeps a toothbrush with me everywhere I go. So
yeah, I used to have one in my car. I do have a razor in my car that I
don't have
like.
that.
I have like a bunch of like disposable razors that I keep in my car. I used to have a disposable toothbrush in there too. I don't know. It might still be. I got a new car recently, so maybe I changed it. I don't remember.
Now, the other part of this is Canty says that there's many times that he's tried to put too much toothpaste on the brush that's fallen off, to which I
don't have that problem.
I don't have that problem either, which makes me think that Canty doesn't know his own strength because he's probably squeezing the toothpaste too hard.
Either that or he's just uncoordinated. Because if you can't put the toothpaste, even on the tiny little head that I have on my brush, I can still get the toothpaste on there. It's just not a sufficient amount of toothpaste for my liking.
Yeah.
So when I saw Harper doing this, I was thinking, what's the big deal? Like, I do this almost every single day.
I guess you and Harper have more in common than you thought, Mike.
I couldn't hit 35 home runs in one season. However, we brush our teeth the same way. All right, coming up, football at 4. Eagles OTAs today. What are we learning? Adam Caplan joins us for football at 4, and it's coming up next. Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Eagles OTAs are back. They are on the field this week. Nick Sirianni will talk tomorrow. Jalen Hurts will talk tomorrow. And, of course, Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, which you can get on all podcasting platforms. It is brought to you by Ocean Casino Resort, the Fanatics Sportsbook, the go-to game day destination. And, of course, Adam Caplan is back on a Tuesday where the Birds are back on the field. And all week long, this week and next week, the Eagles will be back. And we're going to tell you a little bit about what they will be doing, Adam Caplan, as they are back for, OTAs, organized team activities. What exactly are these organized team activities?
Yeah, so, Mike, they've really changed over years. So when we had the old CBA, right, before 2011, the off-season programs are much longer. The players wanted a shorter off season. They did not want the coaches to talk to them when they were coming in to work out. So basically what the league said is, okay, well, we'll do that. No problem. But, this is part of that CBA in 2011. They did that. And there were certain parts certain givebacks that the clubs got. And everybody was happy with that. The players got what they wanted. Shorter off season. They wanted more time with their families in the off season, work out on their own, which is what they can do. But now what happens is coaches had to learn, as I've been told many times, they had to coach differently. When it comes to the Eagles, who are going to practice today and tomorrow, and then Thursday, and then next week, Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. You notice they're not doing over the weekend. They're not doing Wednesday. You could have up to 10 OTA practices, and you could have one mandatory camp, which could consist of up to 3 days. Eagles are going to have 2 days, not 3 days for the mandatory camp, which is the following week on the 9th and 10th. So they've decided that they're just going to have these 6 practices, and they're going to go from there. And they're very light, Mike. You should understand this is phase 3. The practices in the mandatory camp are exactly the same in the OTAs. There's no difference. It's just that everyone has to be there. That's the only difference, as coaches have told me over the years. The media makes way too much of it. But you have to be careful. There are some things that you should note. Any position change you should absolutely note. And we're going to talk about Cooper DeJean, which we didn't talk about last time we were on. What kind of shape these guys are in, who looks explosive and not explosive. But very little of what we see in OTAs has anything to do with what you're going to see in the season.
Yeah, most likely, we will be taking a look at stuff, and that will be a quick little, couple. What's today? Today and tomorrow, as you said, they're off on Thursday. They'll be back on Friday, and then Monday, Tuesday next week, and then Thursday of next week. Then they have a mandatory mini camp that is coming up on June 9th and the 10th, and I would imagine by the time that mandatory mini camp gets around, Adam, we're going to have a finality on this A.J. Brown thing.
Yeah, well, June 2nd, Mike, is the first day they can do this from their standpoint for cap management, so that they can use a post-June 1 designation to get 2 of them. They could spread the cap hit over 2 years, not 1. Now, if for some reason the trade is not done by June 2nd, there's no timeline that you could do it later in the offseason. You could do it, you could do it right before training camp. But it would tell you they don't have what they want, which is a first-round pick. I just don't see it being done without one. That's been what we've heard from other teams on Inside the Birds, that the Patriots have been and are clearly the favorite. Nothing's changed. I'd be surprised if it changes by next week in terms of who the favorite is. But I'm telling you, though, if a trade is not done by June 2nd, it's not Howie Roseman does not have what he wants. And that's when other teams could come into play.
All right. So that's obviously something we're going to be keeping an eye on here. What else do we look forward during these practices in terms of any of the players and some of the things that we should be paying attention to?
Yeah, I'm not worried about performance because, folks, unless you're talking to the coaches or front office executives, because the practices are just so late, you don't really know what you're looking at. If you're trying to break down, this guy practiced well, you would not know. For the most part, you would not know unless you talk to somebody. I've covered this business for 27 years. I've been through this. What you look for is what anyone should look for who goes to practice. Height, weight, length. Like my perfect example of this was Jordan Mailata in 2018. Saw him at the rookie camp and saw him in the OTAs. I was blown away by his movement. That meant something to me. I didn't know that. Look, we know he was raw. He didn't know how to play football. He had to learn how to put a helmet on. But in scouting, that he has what they call unusual or rare athleticism for a guy's size, and size is an attribute. That's something that you want to have. It's something you love to find. So that to me meant something. I did keep that in my head. Like, wow, I got to see over months and years. Does this mean anything? Well, it sure as hell meant something because they coached him up. Jeff Stoutland coached him up. He was big into him being drafted because he was working at the academy where he was working out, and that meant a lot. Like your first impressions. I'll give you another one. Donald Pumphrey when it's a negative. Donald Pumphrey looked really small in the 2017 OTAs. He was a rookie. As one Eagles person told me, he's small and he looks small. Okay, that's not good. Whereas you have Darren Sproles, who's small but he plays bigger.
And Pumphrey was a third-round pick, right?
Fourth out of San Diego State, leading rusher in San Diego State history. Yeah, and
I
that was
remember him vividly. Yeah,
his numbers were incredible, but look, they missed on that one because they looked at the numbers and he had certain analytical data that was good, but you have to watch the tape, and he's so small physically. He never really made it. He went to the Lions. He never really made it. I don't think he even played in a regular season game. Like, that was a bad miss. But so that's the kind of stuff I look at. And position changes, Mike, because that matters. Absolutely. Position changes like that. That's hard news. That's hard information. When Vic Fangio broke the news last week with Cooper DeJean changing positions, he's not going to play corner anymore. That meant something.
Yeah, so let's dive a little deeper into that. What do we make of those comments from Cooper DeJean? Because a lot of times in the nickel, he will shift to the slot, correct?
Yeah, so when you look at Cooper DeJean, right, we have to go back to the 2024 draft. As we told you, Mike, on your show, well, they drafted him to be a corner, but we didn't know that the hamstring injury, then another minor injury would set him back, where Vic Fangio said, you know what, we're not going to play him at corner right now. We're going to train him at nickel. We're going to let him learn there. Well, also what they didn't know is he'd be great as a rookie, then become an all-pro in year two. To the point, Vic's, and we've had questions about this, and we've told people we're not totally sure that Vic sees him as a corner long-term. Well, Fangio gave out the news last week. DeJean is not going to play corner. He's going to play nickel and safety. Safety and base. Now, as Jeff pointed out to us last week, he made a good point. Yes, in years past, he'd play corner and base. Well, that's one position, but it's safety because, Mike, so many teams now are playing 12 personnel with 2 tight ends and 2 receivers. There may be not as much of a need for him to play nickel anymore. So he'll play more nickel than safety, but it could be a 60-40 split, Mike. We pointed out that the Rams were the heaviest 11 personnel team for years. Not anymore. They're a big 13 personnel team with 3 tight ends.
Right. So, because that's the thing. They haven't played a lot of base defense in the past because of the way offenses kind of line up against you. You're not in your base defense as much. You're thinking that might not be the case as much this year. So with them playing more more base defense, you will see him line up as a safety more.
Well, here's the thing. So if you look at the 11 personnel, right, the Washington could play both, or what's called a balance 11 and 12. They're changing their offense completely to Ben Johnson's disciple. David Blau's going to run his version of Ben Johnson's offense with Washington. Tennessee is with Brian Dable. He likes to play 11 personnel if he's got enough players. And by the way, they have Wan'Dale Robinson, who's going to be their slot receiver. So now that's a team that you'll play a lot of nickel. Weeks 3 and 4, you're going to see DeJean play a ton of safety, probably more than nickel than safety. Bears are going to move to a lot of 12 personnel. Remember, they traded G.J. Moore, their top receiver. They traded him away to Buffalo. So they have too many tight ends. That means they're going to play a lot of 12 personnel. The Rams, they started playing a ton of 12 and 13 personnel last season. Forget about 11 personnel. The Jaguars, they could play both. Carolina will be 12. Dallas could play both. Washington again. The Giants will do both. They could play 11 or probably more 12. Steelers, they're going to play a lot of 11 because they wanted Mekhi Lemon. They didn't get him. but they drafted Jeremy Bernard. So, Mike, he's going to play safety more than we think.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good thing with his skill set, right? You agree?
Yeah. Honestly, we kind of hinted at this last summer when Reed Blankenship wasn't getting his job. I mentioned on our show, if Reed Blankenship does not return, Cooper DeJean could play a part in it because Vic sees him potentially as a safety. Now, he went up. Now, we have to mention, we are certain that in practices that DeJean did not line up at safety last summer, but Vic had it in the back of his mind this could happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I give Howie credit. Talking to coaches who work for the Eagles over the years, he never dictates, oh, you have to use him at this position or that. He doesn't do that. He has to know because he's the GM. He has to understand how their personnel is going to be used, but
right.
He doesn't do that. He one of the reasons why he's arguably the NFL's best is he's learned from conversations and situations earlier in his career that you could give your opinion, but you got to let the coaches coach.
So a lot of fans, Adam Caplan with us for Football at 4, will see depth charts and stuff. Should they read anything into that during OTAs?
No, we have a saying at Inside the Birds. We make a note of everything, but we don't think much of anything. We make a note of it. We want to see where guys are being lined up. That's way more important. Like if Markel Bell lined up at guard in some practice, that means that we need to know that. Like that you have to. That means something to me.
You say Markel Bell, the tackle?
Yeah, like if he lined up, I'm not saying he's lining up guard, but if Markel Bell, who's a massive human being, he's huge.
Yeah.
Because without Stoutland,
I'm thinking of who was the guy Bell that they had from the Bills?
Demetrius Bell.
Bell, yes, who was a bust.
Who's Karl Malone's son? Yeah, that one did not work out well. Demetrius Bell, yes.
That's who I thought you were.
Name?
That's who I thought you were randomly just.
No, Markel Bell. Yeah,
yes,
Markel Bell.
Yes.
No, when I said Bell, Markel Bell.
Yeah.
But see, Mike, Markel Bell is huge. 6'9". That you can't be lining this guy. Jeff and I talked about this after he was drafted.
Yeah.
Why would you line him up inside? But they're very weak at backup guard, like extremely weak. And as we keep telling people, who's the backup guard if Dickerson gets hurt again? Who's lining up in a spot?
Right. Yeah.
That's Drew Kendall would be the first guy, but he's too light. He's more of a center. So that's the stuff that I want to know about. If guys are lining up at multiple positions, that matters to me.
All right. Tomorrow, Nick Sirianni will speak, and of course, we'll have plenty more coverage of the Eagles OTAs during Football at 4 right here on the Sports Bash. Adam is back on Friday. The Birds will be on the field. Adam, thanks, man.
Sounds good. Thanks.
As always, Football at 4 powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. And, of course, it is brought to you by Sportsbook at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. Matt Wright, Friday, July 24th and July 25th. Joey Diaz, Friday, August 7th. And Sebastian Maniscalco, September 17th through the 20th and the 24th through the 27th. Go to theoceanac.com to check out all the live entertainment this summer at Ocean. We got a lot coming up here, including Josh's Jerky. We're going to hear what some NFL insiders have to say about the latest A.J. Brown stuff. Could there be a team that comes out of right field and changes this whole thing? Adam doesn't think so. Do NFL insiders think so? Plus, Ken Rosenthal on what the Phillies could try to do here. There's a lot of frustration with this Phillies team. It is starting to basically get ridiculous. If you missed the open of today's show and you're watching on YouTube, I would go back to the first hour and listen. Also coming up, Dave Gallagher spent 9 years in the majors. Want to hear what his thought is on this Phillies lineup and what they could do to it, or at some point, do the team inside that locker room just say, you know what, guys, we got to do something different? Does those leaders step up and say, it is time? Plus a mock Sixers trade of interest. We'll get into that and more all here on the Sports Fast Live on 97.3 ESPN. 423. He's on vacation. We got what little nugs Josh has today to send our way. Sports Bash is live on 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, and you can watch the show live on the 97.3 ESPN YouTube channel. And, of course, we got the NBA playoffs tonight, the Western Conference Finals. You'll see a lot of Jared McCain tonight, I would imagine. You got a couple injury situations with Oklahoma City that they are working on. So we'll get in that as well. 5 o'clock, Dave Gallagher tonight. Got a Sixers trade that they posted over at ESPN.com that it's kind of in the realm of the one that I brought up last week or 2 weeks ago involving the Sixers and the Pistons. So we'll dive into that as well. Let's bring in our trusty producer, Josh, for today's edition of Josh's Jerky on the Sports Bash.
Well, Mike, there's a lot to get to. There's a lot going on. So bear with me as we try to navigate through all this because, it was a 3-day weekend. People don't even know what day it is. I mean, did you even know it was Tuesday today?
No, in fact, Jeff Mosher was in the stream, which is the video portion of our show. He was sitting in the green room waiting for me to enter him in, and then he didn't know why I kept saying Adam Caplan's coming up. And when he went to the StreamYard, I never put him into the picture.
Yeah, it's probably my fault because I sent the link. So
he did say he was confused that you sent him the link. And I said, well, that I can't, tell you anything about. But
yeah, well, that was autopilot for me. I was just autopiloting links out. But here we go. So
we all in our head, it is Monday. We drove home from Virginia Beach last night in a downpour.
Nice.
And that drive from Virginia Beach home
was probably an hour longer than it needed to be.
Well, we started, say, 5:45. We got home around midnight last night. I watched the Phillies game in the car last night.
Sounds about right.
And it was pouring rain the entire time. And have not slept enough today.
Yeah. Well, welcome to the club.
It feels like Monday.
We're all in this dump together. But here we go. So a couple things we want to get to. I wanted to start with, we talked to football with Adam Caplan, football at 4. So Jeremy Fowler was on SportsCenter earlier today. Now, for those who have not been fully tracking this, every NFL insider and their cousin and their friend, except for Diana Rossini, has been chiming in the last few days about A.J. Brown and the Eagles. Is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen? So Fowler was asked earlier today on SportsCenter, what exactly is going on? Is A.J. Brown going to the Patriots or not? Here was Jeremy Fowler's initial answer.
My sense is it's still all systems go with New England. They're still confident. Now, it's a wink-wink situation. There's no contract here. They haven't cut a deal on a trade. They really can't do that until June because of the Eagles' ramifications of wanting to wait till then because of that dead money you mentioned. Now, there could be a dark horse that gets involved because they certainly could make a call. Howie Roseman, the GM of the Eagles, could call out to try to gauge or improve that market.
Now, Mike, this is the third different NFL insider who's brought up the idea that, hey, we expect him to go to the Patriots, but you never know how we could make a last-minute pivot. So how much of this do you think is how he actually would make a pivot, or how much of that is fill in the blank NFL insider covering their tail in case Howie makes a pivot?
I think Howie would make a pivot unless he's already agreed to something. I don't think he cares. Remember the whole situation with the guy from the Rams last year, the offensive lineman?
Oh, Lampkin.
And the people thought that was kind of like foul play a little bit.
Right, because they acquired a guy who was injured, and there's a lot of weird NFL bylaws about whether you can or can't trade players who are injured.
Yeah, moral of the story, if it's going to help the Eagles out, Roseman will do it.
Daryl Morey wishes he was Howie Roseman.
So if he gets a better deal between now and then, as long as he hasn't, quote unquote, agreed to a deal, I don't think he wants to be that guy.
Right. I don't think Howie would ever put himself in a position where he gets pigeonholed. And
if he gets a deal between now and then, though, what's to say that there isn't a team on May 26th that says, hey, listen, we got a window here. Should we make the call or not?
And that's where Fowler was asked about some of the other teams who have been rumored. And Fowler, I don't want to say he completely closed the door, but he was pretty quick to shoot down at least two potential rumored AJ Brown destinations?
Kansas City Chiefs have been implicated. My sense is that they have not been involved to this point, at least. LA Rams are at least interesting because back in March, they did inquire, but they got Devontae Adams, they got Puka Nacua. Do they want to add a third weapon there on the outside? They could at least make a phone call. But right now, my sense strongly is that New England is still in the driver's seat here.
My sense strongly, AKA there's a deal done. We just can't come out and say that. That is the language that I keep hearing between Jeremy Fowler and Schefter was on this morning, I believe, was he on Unsportsmanlike? I don't remember. But I mean, he essentially.
Well, Schefter's been saying.
Yeah.
Schefter's been saying that. Ina Rappaport has been saying that. Mike Garafolo's been saying that. You know, James Palmer played that audio a couple weeks ago. He was on Kay Adams' show. He was saying that. So at some point, Mike, if everyone's saying it, it's probably true.
I would think so. I would think that what we're hearing from multiple people is that the Eagles are going to trade A.J. Brown, and the most likely candidate is the New England Patriots. Does that mean it is, again, unless it has been agreed on behind closed doors and they just can't, obviously can't say that.
Right.
But I wouldn't be shocked. Fowler brought up the Rams. Puka Nacua's had some off-field
issues. Yeah.
The Chiefs are interesting. So today, Patrick Mahomes was at OTAs. Yes. He's throwing. I mean, this guy had ACL surgery.
He's not running, but he's throwing.
So maybe they're seeing his timeline and thinking two things. Either A, he might be available before we think he could be available, or B, he might not be the same level of player that he was. We need to get him a better receiver than what he has.
Well, also the fact that, remember, Rashid Rice, he had to go to jail now for 30 days after getting knee surgery. How about that whole fiasco?
So he's sitting in the cell with like his leg up?
Pretty much. I'm assuming that's like the visual you can have.
Bizarro world there.
Yeah, so bizarre. I mean, the guy is just an idiot. And Travis Kelce, it's cute that he's coming back for one more year, but he ain't the Travis Kelce he used to be.
Yeah.
So the Chiefs would be smart to acquire another receiver.
Yeah, I definitely think if you're the Chiefs, you are maybe Patrick Mahomes and trying to give him more talent because he might not be the same Patrick Mahomes that he's been. And maybe that gets them into like a late, hey, you know what? Let's call Philadelphia and see, hey, you seemingly are willing to move A.J. Brown. We're interested.
Yeah, I'm just surprised there's not more teams calling per se. Like
maybe a lot of teams don't want to give up a first-round pick.
I think a lot of teams don't want people to know that they have called about A.J. Brown. I feel like the only team that's admitted to it is the Rams.
The Rams, that was a weird situation where you don't normally hear that, but yes, their GM firmly admitted that they talked to Philadelphia.
Right. Usually you might hear
that too often.
No, I mean like through the media reporters. Like there's not usually like you might get like I'm not trying to throw this guy under the bus or anything, but like, like a Jordan Schultz might be like the first to report something, right? Jordan's pretty good at, being like one of the first guys to catch like a random story and like everyone else be like second and third in line behind him.
Here's what Adam Schefter said this morning on Unsportsmanlike about the whole situation, which kind of firms up what we've been hearing. Yeah, my computer's telling me you're not hearing from Adam Schefter.
I've thought all along the New England Patriots. I'm not wavering. I know people have come up with other teams. I know that there have been other teams that have been trotted out there, speculated on, not seeing it. Just not seeing it. Now, again, we'll see how the week evolves. We'll see what transpires on June 1st. But I've said it all along, I expect him to be a Patriot. I'm not wavering. I'll stick to that and ride with that. And I think at this time next week, he'll be in New England.
Yeah, he's pretty firm on this.
Not Caplan. Adam Schefter has been strong about this for about 2 months now. He's been riding this. He's been waving this flag for a while. He ain't stopping now.
And I don't think he has any reason to. I'm not calling him out to say, you're wrong, because I don't think he is wrong. I think the Eagles are going to trade A.J. Brown to the Patriots.
I think the interesting thing is, what you brought before, though. What do they do now that A.J. Brown is gone? And I think that's
well, the Eagles already did what they're going to do now that A.J. Brown is gone. They drafted a guy. They traded for guys.
Right.
I mean, they told you in the offseason that he will not be here.
Oh, I know that. But I mean, like, what are they going to do on the field without him? Like, how are they going to play? Because, we have the reporting out there that the Eagles, They look at Devontae Smith as the number one. Okay, if he's the number one, who's number two?
Mm-hmm.
Who's number three? What's the hierarchy for the Eagles now, Mike? I think that's the interesting question.
All right. Yeah, I mean, number one will be Devontae Smith. You have a true slot guy with Lemon, and then I would imagine Wicks is the guy who plays the other side. So you'll have Wicks and Smith as your outsides. Lemon and Hollywood Brown is also a guy who can stretch the field.
All right, let's flip it over here on a little more different flavor of jerky here.
Hold on a second here.
Yes.
On the other side. All right. You got more jerky. This is coming from
we got baseball.
Baseball. All right. All right. We'll do that coming up next here on the Sports Bash Live. Well, Ken Rosenthal, what does he have to say? That's next. This is the Sports Bash. All right, 4:39. Listen to the NBA Western Conference Finals tonight. We've had the Spurs and the Thunder all season long. While they're playing, and you get the Game 5 tonight, the series is tied 2-2. The last time the Knicks were in the NBA Finals, these things did not exist. The iPhone, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter X,
right?
Bitcoin,
Absolutely.
Gmail, Amazon Prime,
That's true.
Google Maps,
Verified.
Androids,
Yep.
Netflix streaming,
Uh-huh.
ChatGPT,
Yes.
TikTok, Snapchat,
Of course.
Xbox,
Nope.
Pinterest,
Definitely not.
LinkedIn,
Yeah, no.
iPads,
Yeah.
Uber, Airbnb, Spotify,
Yep.
Zoom.
We're probably better off not
Better
having half
world.
those things too. Those things are probably better off without.
And let me tell you about my friend Rocco over at Key Acura of Atlantic City. I saw on Friday's show, the tech sport. I missed this on Friday. I actually saw it after the show was over. Somebody listening to the show on Friday
Yes.
said they went over to buy a Key Acura, but they didn't get the $199 a month for 36 months. He said he upgraded. He went to a higher model, Josh.
Well, it just shows you that you have options when you go to Key Acura, right?
Great stuff. Appreciate that guy letting us know. And I'm sure my guy Rocco over at Key Acura of Atlantic City was thrilled that one of our listeners stopped in and got himself a new Key Acura. It is a great spot if you want to just go and feel very unpressured. Hey, Rocco, can I walk around? Want to walk around with me? Tell me a little bit about some of these cars. And we had a listener text in the other day. That's exactly what he did. And you could do it too. Key Acura of Atlantic City, the small but friendly dealers.
All right, let's flip over to the Phillies now because I'm part of Josh's jerky today. We got to change the flavors.
Josh's jerky today, and no Knicks Nuggets. Nuggets is off all week long.
Yeah, I didn't know this actually, so this is a pretty exciting opportunity for me to fill in for Nuggets.
Well, I knew that he was off. I just didn't know how many days because, with him, he could be sick, and that's like 2 days in a row.
Yeah, see, I only thought he was off for like last week through the weekend. I was under the impression he'd be back today, but I was wrong. It's a bad job by me. I should have verified that. But here we go. What I can verify is so Ken Rosenthal every year does his post Memorial Day stock up, stock down for all the baseball teams. So I was listening this morning on the Fair Territory Ken Rosenthal pod on YouTube, and he actually, Mike, put the Phillies in the stock up category, even though they went 2-4 on the homestand, even though their offense is struggling a little bit. Ken Rosenthal says they are on the upward swing.
In the stock up category, a team that began the season poorly, fired its manager, and has since found its footing. I'm talking, of course, about the Philadelphia Phillies. The Philadelphia Phillies, they had a 2-4 homestand last week against Cincinnati and Cleveland, slowed down a little bit. But after starting 9-19 under Rob Thompson, they're 18-8 under Don Mattingly.
I can understand he's saying their stock up because of how they started and where they are now.
Right.
They've got themselves to 500. But are they stock up big picture? Probably not.
Maybe not. But Rosenthal goes on to explain that it wasn't because of the manager necessarily why they made this turnaround.
You've also got, from an offensive standpoint, Kyle Schwarber leading the majors in home runs. Bryce Harper doing his thing again, looking like, yes, an elite player. So the Phillies, while they have some others in their lineup that they need to get going, Trey Turner among them, they are a team that looks like it's going to be quite formidable again.
Well, I don't know what lineup he watched this weekend, but I didn't see one that looks like it's going to be quite formidable again.
Doesn't it feel like he's a little bit too positive about the Phillies?
Yeah, and it's easy to get sucked into the Phillies. They've had a lot of success. They've won a lot of games. They have a lot of big-name players. They spend a lot of money on this team. So on the peripherals, it's easy to say, well, you got Schwarber, you got Harper, you got Turner, you got Wheeler, you got Sanchez, you've got, Nola makes a lot of money. Well, Nola stinks. You got Real Muto, makes a lot of money. Well, Real Muto stinks. They got a lot of guys who were on that 2022 World Series team. Well, none of them have gotten much better. Stott and Bohm. So it's easy if you are just casually saying, yeah, this Phillies team should be pretty good. They got a lot of names. They make a lot of money. But we know in the end, when we watch this team every single day, that the team hasn't improved. They haven't changed. And it is the same story. You got great pitching. You can win a game 1-0. You can lose a game 3-1. And that's exactly this weekend was the epitome of Phillies baseball. You have tremendously pitched games and you lose 2 out of 3 because you couldn't score. I mean, this weekend against the Guardians, they lose 1-0, they win 3-0, and they lose 3-1. So the aggregate scores is 4-4, but you lost 2 of the 3 because you just simply could not hit.
And literally, if you would have scored 2 more runs over the course of the whole weekend, you would have won at least one of those games.
And last night's game, you actually won a game 3-0 where you had 3 hits.
That's it.
You had 3. You can't win with 3 hits all summer long.
Like you were lucky you won the game yesterday, right?
With 3 hits, you're lucky you win any game with 3 hits. I mean, you get a first inning homer, and then you don't score again until the 7th inning where you get a 2-run homer. And there's your only 2 runs of the game, your only 3 hits of the day. So unfortunately for Rosenthal there, I would have to say I disagree with his first 2 comments that a stock-up team, I'm not buying stock, and that, Schwarber and Harper are hitting well, but they're the only 2 guys. And Marsh has been pretty good, although he was hitting 349 about 2 weeks ago. He's at 318 now.
Yeah, he's dropped off tremendously.
Well, you know why? Now they're playing him against lefties.
Well, it's also because, someone gets film on you, right? They start seeing you made adjustment. Now you got to make adjustments to the adjustments.
Well, but the Marsh facing lefties thing is he's playing every day, essentially, which people wanted him to play every day. Now he is, and he's dropped 40 points almost to his batting average because he's not a good hitter against left-handed pitching. Now, he's been better this year. I will give him that.
Sure.
He has been better, but as he faces more lefties, that batting average is going to continue to plummet.
Well, maybe this third point you will agree with Ken Rosenthal. This is more from the Fair Territory podcast with Ken Rosenthal, where he talked about the Phillies pitching staff.
This is a team, now that Zach Wheeler is healthy, and that was a pivotal move, if not a more pivotal move than change in managers. With Zach Wheeler healthy, you've got Wheeler and Sanchez at the top of the rotation. Sanchez, with a consecutive scoreless inning streak, is one of the most dominant pitchers in Major League Baseball. Wheeler, of course, is one of the great aces in Major League Baseball. You've got those 2 guys going really well.
Yeah, you have those 2 guys going really well. You probably have the best 1-2 punch in all of baseball. And Sanchez lost the game the other night. 1-0. He didn't get the loss, but it's a game he leaves the game with giving up no runs.
He did his job.
And you lose the game. So, again, we've seen this story, though. You can have the best pitching, and it only takes 1 playoff game where he's not at his best.
Right, and this is why, I feel like I'm basically a broken record at this point. I've been complaining about the offense for so long. You've been bringing up the fact that, they just have not had a real cleanup hitter in forever. And
everybody's been bringing let's not take credit for, this has been noticed by everybody. Their pitching's been very good.
By everybody but Dombrowski, apparently.
By the way, we talked about, he says stock up. The Phillies, the winning percentage of teams the Phillies played with Thompson, those teams won, their winning percentage was 50.7. With Mattingly, 45.8. So they have been the beneficiary of playing an easier schedule, which is changing now.
Right.
The Guardians are a good team. They lose 2 out of 3. They're playing the Padres, who they beat last night. So give them credit for that. We'll see what ends up happening here. But the Mattingly schedule, the teams that they faced had a 458 winning percentage. Under Thompson, the teams that they faced had a 507 winning percentage. So they obviously the schedule played a big factor in why they had so many guys who just weren't playing well, but this all evens out and the big picture comes into play. That's why with Rosenthal, he's saying it's a stock-up team, big picture. Well, have you factored in that Trey Turner has really struggled, that JT Realmuto is not the same player that he was. Bryson Stott hasn't gotten much better, although Bryson Stott he leads the
National League in RBI this month.
I think he leads the majors in RBI.
The majors?
Yeah.
I lost that. I saw National League, but it could be majors. Sure.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Either way, it's still impressive. So I think you mentioned Mattingly. That's where we pivot over to the Philly Show podcast. So the Philly Show podcast, they dropped the pod on Memorial Day. And Jim Salisbury had a big picture takeaway from what Don Mattingly, the Phillies interim manager, said over the weekend. Now, for those who didn't hear, Friday night, Mattingly was initially asked about Adolis Garcia's defense in right field because of that big throwout that he had on Friday night, which helped preserve Christopher Sanchez's scoreless inning streak. Well, apparently, Mattingly, his other things he said this weekend perked Jim Salisbury's attention.
Mattingly, very frank on Saturday, said when asked about, sticking with Garcia, he said, I don't really have an alternative, at least one that's an upgrade offensively. So that's kind of damning on their bench and what they have from the right side, and would lead you to believe that once again, they're going to be out there looking for right-handed offense at the deadline.
That'll be interesting to see how that all happens, that they'll be looking for right-handed offense at the deadline, because what are you just going to bench him? Because last year we thought that they would just DFA Kepler and he would be out. That didn't happen. Right. But what they did do was they did something we didn't think was going to happen either. They platooned Castellanos. Right. We never saw that coming because we just figured they're not going to do that. They finally made that decision. So if you get a right-handed guy to play outfield, does he supplant Garcia? Or does he platoon with somebody
like
else? Marsh or Crawford? Listen, I heard all this stuff about like minor league numbers, and I said, you take them with a grain of salt. There's a reason why they don't pay attention to a guy hitting whatever he hit against lefties in the minor leagues, because nobody cares. Nobody cares that, Otto Kemp rips up AAA. He goes down there, and then he comes up here. He's hitting 080.
Right.
These minor league numbers, I get it. Like, you got to go off of something, but Justin Crawford's not playing against lefties now. So do you find a platoon for him, or do you find a platoon for Marsh and go back to that setup?
Well, we know Garcia can play center field if needed in a pinch. So is it a scenario where you try to find a platoon for Marsh and then tell Garcia you're going to platoon with Crawford? Or you look for an everyday right fielder?
Something's got to be different. You can't keep, Garcia is struggling so bad and he's playing every day. Crawford is now down to, what is he down to? 239. His on base percentage is like I don't want to misquote myself.
I know it's dropped. Yeah. He's been struggling a bit this month for sure. Teams are kind of like, getting in on his hands more and making him chase.
Crawford's on base is 304.
Still not good.
No, that's terrible. 304 is bad. He's hitting 235 with a 304 on base percentage. His OPS is 650. His slug is 346. These are all they're not playable numbers. You can't play him you just can't play him. And by the way, Marsh, you have to play. You just don't have a choice. There's just no other option there. We told you, he has dropped almost 40 points from his batting average. He was at 349. Now he's at 318. So 30 points he's dropped from his batting average. And a lot of that, you take a look at it. Now listen, again, like I said, he has done a good job against lefties so far. He's at 282 against lefties. But the last 15 days has coincided with what? When he's played more.
Played more and more.
And in the last 15 days, he's hitting 217 with a 250 on base percentage, a 620 OPS, because he is now getting a steadier diet of facing lefties. So they were limiting his against lefties. Now they're just saying, we don't have another choice. You got to go. Now, if you notice where they hit him in the lineup, he hit 9th the other day.
Right.
You have Brandon Marsh hitting 9th. So that tells you what they think he is against lefties.
I would also point out, and I know it's very early to have this conversation, but talking about the deadline, like Salisbury brought up, there's a lot of non-traditional teams that are winning right now, like the White Sox, and teams that you thought were going to be more competitive, like the Rangers and Tigers, who are not playing well. So it'll be interesting to see who are the actual sellers at the deadline, because some of the teams that we thought were going to be contenders are sticking up the joint right now.
Well, there's just not a lot of right-handed bats either that are available. Right? There's just not a lot of right-handed bats.
I don't know. Can I introduce you to Matt Vierling reunion?
No, please no. Yeah, I mean, you look at Crawford. He was a great story, and unfortunately, he's struggling big time right now.
Right.
He was at one point he was up over 300. He's at 235, and we asked the question: what would his batting average have to be to say, "Hey, that's a successful season"? He's got a 234 batting average and a 304 on base percentage. They got to figure something else out there. People wanted him to hit leadoff, for God's sakes. All right, final hour of the Sports Fast Live, 97.3 ESPN. We're going to talk to our buddy Dave Gallagher. Spent 9 years in the majors. Always good conversations with Dave. And I saw Dave this weekend watching the Phils and frustratingly watching the Phils. And we'll dive into all that stuff right now on the Sports Fast Live, 97.3 ESPN. I think I hit my breaking point when I saw JT Realmuto hitting in the 5-hole. And at that point I said, you ever see the movie Liar, Liar? Where Jim Carrey can't write, the pen, and he can't write the names down that he wants to write. That should be the person who puts Real Muto's name in the 5-hole. Like, his hands should just not let you do it. At that point, you have to realize, if I'm putting JT Real Muto in the 5-hole, we're probably not good enough, and I have to think about something to make a move here. The offense lifeless this weekend. And you have unbelievable pitching performances. And, Dave, I want to start with that. When the offense is struggling that bad, and we all know the problems this offense has, you put JT Realmuto in the 5-hole, you got Brandon Marsh hitting 9th. That tells you, they just don't trust him to hit left-handed pitching. So you got one of your best hitters hitting in the 9-hole. You got JT Realmuto hitting in the 5-hole. Look at this collection of right-handed bats, Dave. Is there a fix for this lineup or this offense with the right-handed bat collection you've been given?
Boy, there's not a whole lot of options, is there? I think I heard your monologue a few hours ago and your frustration. That's about as frustrated as I've ever heard you on the air. But I get it, because for whatever reason, I'm not even like a true blue Phillies fan. I was a Giants fan growing up because my father used to tell me stories about Willie Mays. He saw him play at the Polo Grounds. And then when I started playing, of course, I became obviously a fan of the team that I was on. And 7 different teams, they became my favorite team. So since retirement, I don't really have a team. I just follow the game. But I've been sucked in from doing this show with you. I watch them because I want to know what is going on and have these conversations. Last night was frustrating to watch. Yeah, I started feeling for the staff, because they have been pitching really good. And
best ERA in baseball over the last 2 weeks, 184.
Yeah, I would imagine when you're on the mound inning after inning after inning, and they're professional, they're not going to show up the hitters. They're not going to say anything. They're going to just go do their job. But how much harder it must be to pitch when you have no room for error, no margin for error, right? You give up a run, you feel like that's going to be one too many. But they've been doing their job. And all these times that you and I have talked, we always bring up the left-handed hitters against left-handed pitchers and how bad the Phillies are record-wise against lefties. Never really took a look at the right-handers. They're just not pulling their weight at all against right-handed pitchers or left-handed pitchers. So I get the feeling like if they were hitting decent, or, and we're talking about Bohm and Bohm, drawing a blank here.
Who, Stott?
Yes, not Stott, but all the right-handed hitters.
So, Bohm, Realmuto,
Turner. That's who I was forgetting.
Turner is a whole conversation we're going to be able to have on his own here, right? He is really struggling along here.
He's struggling. He's locked into such a long deal, but all 4 of those guys, the key guys, Garcia too, right? There was some expectations of all 4. These guys have had good numbers in the past, and I have to believe they're going to turn their seasons around. But you can't ignore when you got 4 right-handed hitters that are not pulling their weight in any of those games. If they were hitting a little bit, I think it would take the pressure off of lefty versus lefty, and that would all blend together. But it's not happening right now. Very frustrating to watch.
Well, let's start at the top. Trey Turner. What do you do in that situation, Dave? You've probably played with a guy who has had a great career and is well respected and has struggled mightily. He is at 221 with a 277 on base percentage, a 332 slug. His OPS is 608. He's hitting leadoff. What do you do?
Yeah, I don't know if there's much you can do, right? You could sit him, you can rest him. But eventually he's got to go back in there. Who's going to take him in a trade? I don't think you're going to be able to trade him. Do I think he'll get hot? Of course. It's a long season. He's probably got close to 500 at bats left in the season, and so he'll get hot again. I feel like every season, every player on the team will carry the team offensively and also will struggle. And the guys that have a really good year just simply carry the team longer and do more damage. Like we've seen Schwarber do that. We've seen Harper do it. And you're seeing Marsh do it this year. The guys who have a bad year, they just can't get out of their down streaks. They're too long, and their hot streaks are very short. And that basically defines your season. I remember when Jeff Kent got called up. He got traded from Toronto to the Mets, and he started so slow in New York. And I remember thinking, should I go say something to him? It was during batting practice. And I did. I walked up to him, and I just said what I just told you. I said, listen, I've been around long enough to know that you will carry this team at some point. Right now you're struggling, and other guys are carrying the team. You will. I promise you. And you just stick with it. He had a hard time when he first came up with the media and pushing television camera. Like it's a part of the game that everybody goes through, and they're going through it collectively, and not even for the first time this year. Like it feels like almost the whole season has been a struggle offensively.
What do you see from Turner, though, as a leadoff guy? He has 17 walks in 217 at-bats. His on-base, again, is 277. You know, this is a guy who won the batting title last year. I know 304 is not the most impressive batting champion number there, but he had over 300, and he had a good season last year. Is he pressing? Is he doing something where you can see it in him?
I think so. I mean, you've heard me say, he's not really a prototypical leadoff guy, and I'm not even talking about speed. He's more of like an ambush fastball. He loves to swing early in the count, and he loves to attack fastballs. And he's fouling off too many of those pitches. It's not good when you're fouling off the pitches that you should jump on, because the count doesn't stay the same. You know, if you're looking for an 0-0 fastball and you get that fastball and you foul it off, it's now 0-1. That at bat just changed. You know, now you're trying to cover all pitches as opposed to keeping that thing fair and driving it. So there are things that you can do, like common sense things. If you think middle of the field, right, and that's mechanical. It's not just a mindset. It's mechanical. Also, you're waiting. It's a timing thing. So if you're thinking middle of the field, drive the ball hard through the middle, and you're a little late, it will go to right center. A little early, left center. So it builds a margin of error, less foul balls. Those are the types of things. Your head position on the ball. Cannot be pulling your head off when you're struggling. Shouldn't do it ever. But when you're struggling, you got to be like dirt nasty with your head position on the ball. I am going to go hard through the middle of the field until you start feeling better at the plate. You might get a bunch of singles. But that is how you build your confidence back up, and then you start laying off pitches that just miss because you're seeing them better. Man, we're watching Garcia, and he's just lost.
He was the guy I was going to bring up next because he's another one of these right-handed bats. And, you know, they spent $10 million last year on Kepler. They moved on from him. They spent $10 million this year on Garcia, and he's been dreadful.
Yeah, he has. I'm not going to lie to you. I felt like when I saw that signing, and I know he came off a rough year last year, but prior to that, he was pretty good. And I thought, okay, that may be an answer there. I know they need some pop from the right side, and they need some protection for those lefties out of Schwarber and Harper. Maybe he'll be the answer. I'm frustrated for him. I'm watching him. I'm thinking, man, he must go home. I was telling my mother-in-law, I'm watching the game with my mother-in-law. Don't laugh at me, Mike, but I'm trying to keep her company. She's up there in age, and I watch the Phillies. I got her, start understanding the game. But I said, Mom, when a guy is struggling like that, you go home and you just feel so bad. You feel like you don't deserve a uniform. And the next day when you wake up, you got to get yourself, motivated to go in early, take extra batting practice. So you do. You go in 5 hours early. You take swings off the tee. Then you get some soft toss from one of the coaches under the stadium. Then you take your regular batting practice. Then you play your game and you go 0 for 4 or 0 for 5 again. and your food doesn't taste good. You feel miserable. You know you're not giving anything to the team, and it can go on. In his case, it's been weeks of just really bad struggling. It's not good. I look at him and I feel for him. I don't know how much the Philly fans are feeling for him, but
and the hard part is Mattingly said the other night, he's like, we don't have any other options. And when the manager says that, it can't give you a lot of confidence either to hear like they're just playing because they got nobody better.
That's the truth, though, right? I mean, I don't know about this bench. I mean, your bench is never going to be that strong, or else those guys on the bench. I was one. They'll be starters if they're doing great.
It's like you talk about the bench and they'd be starters. You start to see Edmundo Sosa. He's playing a lot more, and now his numbers are plummeting.
Yeah, and that's usually what you're going to see. That's why I feel like he is a true bench type guy, because he has that knack of being able to run out to short, second or third, especially. I know he can play first. They've been throwing him in the outfield. Again, that's down to just not having other options. But he can do it relaxed on defense, and that's not an easy thing to do. But offensively, I feel like he's more valuable when you're not overusing him. He'll be a spark. He'll come in, he'll smoke a home run when you're not really counting on it out of him. But as you said, a player who isn't really an everyday player gets exposed when you use him too much, because that's the reason he's not an everyday player, is he can be pitched to, right? But when I look at three catchers, I've heard Mattingly say I like the flexibility, but that's a luxury if you had, a really strong bench. They don't have it.
Mm-hmm.
And
neither one of the other catchers hit. That's the problem. It's one thing to carry three catchers if one of them's a slug. None of these guys hit.
And you're right. That's on JT. If JT is having a good offensive year, then you saw Marshawn make a great throw last night to nail a runner at second. So that would make more sense as a backup catcher who's just strong defensively and give you one day off a week, as long as your starter is hitting. And that's not happening. The other thing, have you noticed JT's throws? It seems to me like he's short hopping second base a lot. And I'm sure he'll fix that. Who knows what it is? Maybe his fingers are getting, over the top of the ball, whatever it is. But it's been happening a lot. And that's not what I remember of him. I just know of him that he handles the pitching staff and shuts down the other team's running game to the point where they don't run.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're trying him, so it's something to keep an eye on. Funny things start happening as you get up there in age. It happened to me at 36 years old, 35 years old, pulled rib cage muscle and BP. Like, what? Never happened to me in my life, and then I didn't even know you have a calf muscle under your calf muscle. And I had that happen to me at 34 years old, where it felt like somebody stabbed a knife. And the doctor said, well, it's not really a load bearing muscle. So as long as you can take the pain, I went, okay, I'll do it. But like these things start breaking down. I hope he's not there, because they got him for what, 3 years?
3 more, 2 more years after this. Yes.
Yeah.
Aaron Nola is going to pitch tonight. I saw you go on a long little Twitter thing on Nola here. Deep dive on him. Is this guy salvageable? He's got 4 years left on his deal at $25 million each. He's going to pitch tonight. He has been struggling mightily.
Mike, if you read that, what I put on Twitter, and it's not a sure thing, but I did play behind Maddox in center field and Glavine in Atlanta. And I watched it. Now, this is before the ABS. It's also before they started to rate the umpires. I'm sure they still rate them. What I mean by that for your listeners is, even with the ABS, they're going to keep track of all the missed calls that the umpires have. And that's how they will, they'll throw that into the mix at the end of the season to see who they hire for playoff games. So the umpires know that before the game starts. They're trying to get it right. So here's my point. When I think of Nola at his best, he reminds me a little bit of a poor man's Maddox, because he had such good movement on his fastball. And if you can establish the outside corner, if it's on the black, and Nola can do that, picture that to a right-handed hitter, the next thing you're going to do is go a little further out. But if the hitter isn't chasing and the umpire's not giving that to you, they used to let you earn that. Like if you show that you can hit that outside corner on the black, they'll give you a ball more. So Maddox and Glavine used to be able to widen their plate. And if Aaron Nola has to come into the zone,
right,
he's in trouble because he doesn't have overpowering velocity. He doesn't have the velocity that he had a few years ago. It's just not enough. And the movement can get a guy, can beat him on the label to bat once in a while. But it seems like what's happening is eventually somebody gets him. They catch up and they get him. And he looks very frustrated. I'll be watching for that tonight to see, how he works the corners and that whole ABS system. It doesn't have to be a helmet tap that you lose. It can simply be that it's a possibility that keeps you in the zone.
Well, and these umpires may have, you could figure out the umpire how far out he'll let you go. Now, with the possibility of a challenge, that umpire knows he can't go further and further out like that,
Exactly. And you think about what's going on now. What's going on? Not saying right or wrong, but the game, as far as pitching, has gone more towards velocity. Like you throw as hard as you can for as long as you can. Don't worry about it. We'll get you out of there. And we have guys in the bullpen, and even they throw hard. So it seems to be turning more towards velocity than location. I'd hate to see that. I was a hitter, but I love to see a guy and play behind a guy who can pitch, who locates.
Yeah.
And how he gets people out. Mike, I thought I'd bring up pregame meetings. And now I'm sure they vary. Now maybe the analytics department runs them. I'm not sure. But so your listeners know, prior to a game starting, there'll be an offensive meeting and a defensive meeting. The offensive meeting will be, team might pull the chairs in, center of the locker room and go over the pitcher that night. What does he throw? Does he have sink on his fastball? What is his move to first? Shorten your lead. He's got a real quick move to first. Or he tips off when he's going to the plate by his left shoulder closing before he lifts his leg. That's what we're going to steal on. Like you go over all that stuff. And then the defensive meeting is how we're going to position. And that pitcher is in there and he's usually saying, here's how I pitch to this guy, or it's being dictated to him. So a guy like Sanchez, I bet already at this point in his career, they're saying, you do what you want to do to get guys out. And that's how they did it with, the staff of Atlanta. But it's very valuable for the defense to know how a guy is going to be pitched. That's what I mean about pitching rather than just throwing really hard. It affects the entire game and how you play it, how you defend.
Talking with Dave Gallagher, spent 9 years in the majors. 1995, he played with the Philadelphia Phillies, and their offense has been a struggle. Their pitching, 1.84 ERA over the last 2 weeks, has been the best. They scored 4 runs in the series against Cleveland the other night. And then, obviously, they got problems up and down this thing. The right-hand hitters we just talked about, and you have so many lefties. You have Brandon Marsh, who's having a really good year. And now he's having to play almost every single day, which I guess is not optimal for them. And it's coming at the expense of Justin Crawford. His average is now plummeting. His on-base percentage is at 304. When you see a young guy like that, do you get worried a little bit who's struggling the way they're using him? 235, 304 on base, 346 slug, and a 650 OPS.
You know what, Mike? It makes you think back a little bit. Remember last year, fans were saying constantly, I would listen to your show and a lot of conversations were, why don't they bring up Crawford? Right. And then Dombrowski actually at some point said, I don't know if he said he's not ready or we're probably not going to bring him up right now. So that's kind of a little insight to how they viewed Crawford,
right?
As an organization.
Well, and you see that in AAA, his average against left-handed pitching, he actually had better numbers against lefties, and that is not happening at this level.
Yeah, it's so strange, right? Like, you would think everybody would do better against minor league pitching, and that is typically the case. I liked facing major league pitching better than minor league pitching, but let me explain. Not the stars. not the all-star pitchers that are going to get everybody out, right? Not them. I'm saying like your third, fourth, and fifth starters of rotation, they're big leaguers. And I was a thinker, and I don't mean overthinking, but an approach guy. Like I would ask myself, why is that guy on the mound tonight for them? He's a big leaguer. They brought him up. Why is it? Oh, he's got sink to his fastball. So if there's first and second, I'm going to the plate, I can bet my house he's going to start a fastball at my knees, a sinker, and he's going to sink it down to my shins and hope that I pound it into the ground for a double play grounder. So what I'm going to do is take that first pitch. And I would never tell anyone else to do that. But that's the way I viewed things. If a guy had life up in the zone with his fastball, I'm zoning down. I'm looking for a pitch to start at my knees to get my hands started. I'm not going to offer it that pitch that's, at my waist, because it's going to have carry right up out of the zone. And that's kind of the way I approached it. And with major leaguers, their command is typically better, so you can guess with them a little easier. AAA, 2-0, the guy, I don't hit many home runs. He's going to throw a fastball in the strike zone. He tries, and he almost hits me in the face. Like, it's hard to face those guys in the minor leagues. There's a reason they are in the minor leagues.
Right, yeah. And listen,
it does, it takes some thinking.
Yeah, by the way, this year, Crawford against lefties, 0-83 with a 185 on base, 0-83 slug, a 269 OPS. I mean, he's got a very limited amount. But why do you think, he did have good numbers against lefties at AAA? I think he hit like, 384. I'll have to get the exact numbers. But they essentially haven't even given him the shot to hit lefties.
Yeah, they're trying to protect him, and that might make people sick to hear that. But it's happening where he's fading, and I hope he doesn't. And everything stands out when you're doing it poorly as a team. Like all of a sudden the last few guys on the roster are panicking because moves got to be made, and then they're looking at, well, I'll be the first to go. And if you're playing well, that same guy that's struggling, they're going to stick with everybody. They're going to leave everything alone.
By the way, versus lefties last year for Crawford, 376. Against righties, he hit 324. So he was actually better against lefties than he was against righties.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty darn good, and probably a pretty good sample size. So, look, do I think he can turn it around? Yes. I know they're trying to make sure that they don't get this kid buried and have a bad, really bad start where they got to send him out, because that can really hurt a guy's confidence. But I think, Mike, we got to take a look at Dombrowski and the farm system. Like, you mean to tell me that you can't build a better bench with anything you have in minor leagues? Like somebody who's a threat to come in as a pinch hitter?
Well, that's the problem, Dave. They had Kemp, and you know this well. This is a great conversation for you. They had Kemp. He struggled because he's platooning, so he's not used to hitting every day. They sent him back. They brought up the Reyes kid. Well, the Reyes kid was struggling because he's not playing every day, so they sent him back, brought Kemp back, and yes, these minor league guys. Now Kemp goes to the minors. He goes down there, and he tears it up. Reyes has teared it up, but they come up here, and they get a different dose.
Yeah, it was the guy the other day, the left-hander that pinch hit against Duran and hit the home run, and ended up
from Cleveland.
Cleveland, that's what it was. And a pinch hitter. They had somebody on the bench. In fact, I think they threw up two left-handed pinch hitters in a row. Like they had that available on the bench. And I don't see it. Are you going to pinch hit Marchand? Are you going to pinch Kemp? Like, I'm not trying to tear into these guys, but I just don't see it. And who is to blame for that? Like,
well, and this is my final question for you, Dave. Now, it's a different time. People act so differently than probably they did when you played. And when you played, there was less platooning. Now, platooning is a much more commonplace around baseball because there's a lot of talent and, there's so much specialized guys. But at what point are you the Schwarber, the Turners, the Harpers, and that crew that have been here, and they keep looking around and saying, this is the same team. We have to do something different. When does that set in?
I thought about that before we went on the air, and I thought, they're going to give this a little while longer, but their next decision that they would have to make in the next few weeks, if they don't get themselves, a half a dozen games above 500 or more. They have to seriously think about shifting this team. And I don't know how you'd unload some of these contracts, because you'd have to pay an awful lot as well as moving a guy. But who do you keep? Are you going to rebuild? That's like waving the white flag. Or do you get your head above water because you have the arms? They definitely Nola do a little better than he's been doing, so that'll be interesting tonight. Painter seems to be climbing up a little. There's some hope there. Sanchez is Sanchez, right? One of the best in the game, and you still got Wheeler. So that's going to be the decision that they have to make, I would say, in the next month. Are we looking to move pieces and start maybe getting some young talent and giving up on this roster that we've had for the core that we've had? But man, that's hard to get out from underneath these long contracts, right?
Sure is. You said it. Nobody wants that Trey Turner. He's got 7 more years on that deal for Trey Turner. He will be in his 40s when he is done that contract. You've got obviously 2 more years after this of Real Muto, 4 more years of Nola. There's a lot of contracts that are going to be tough to kind of watch here, but we'll see what they can do. Dave Gallagher spent 9 years in the majors and is always great breaking it down. We got a lot of great reacts here. Tim from Summers Point checking in says Dave Gallagher is one of the absolute best guests on the Sports Best. He is so knowledgeable about both pitching and hitting. Just an awesome listen. Tim, appreciate that. And Dave, I appreciate you always having a conversation with us here on the show.
Mike, Tim is my cousin. I'm just kidding. It's not. I appreciate that, Tim, wherever you're at.
Summers Point. Tim in Summers Point. Dave, always appreciate it, man. We'll talk again soon.
All right, take care, Mike.
Dave Gallagher breaking it down with a lot of the Phillies' problems. I agree with Tim. I can sit here and just keep throwing questions and just listening to how he processes it and then gives us an answer based on his experience. Game. How about what he says? Tom Glavine. I mean, it's a little different when you hear that answer, right? It's a little different answer when he played behind Greg Maddux and Tom Glavine. All right, when we come back, an NBA insider has a possible trade that could help the Sixers, but would we even want to do that deal? That's next. Stick around. This is the Sports Bash. I am Mike Gill. It's 97.3 ESPN. 5 o'clock hour. It's brought to you by Boxing Insider Promotions. And Josh, they got a good card coming to the Tropicana June 13th.
Yeah, Mike, it's not just one, but two undefeated heavyweight boxers, both from South Jersey. The biggest heavyweight showdown in South Jersey boxing history. Holy Spirit High School graduate Josh Popper taking on Absagabi High School graduate Bruce Selden Jr. plus New Jersey's own John Leonardo, super bantamweight, as well as Pleasantville's Julio Sanchez III, will all be in action on a stacked fight card. You do not want to miss out. Tickets are on Ticketmaster.com. Saturday, June 13th. You do not want to miss the first time we've had two up-and-coming heavyweight undefeated boxers, Mike, go head-to-head. They're both from South Jersey. Josh Popper, Bruce Selden Jr. They go head-to-head Saturday, June 13th, presented by Boxing Insider Promotions.
All right, so saw a mock trade. This is the mock trade season.
This is your favorite season.
Everybody's trying to.
The only thing you like more than this is draft season.
I like watching the mock trades because not like Tears for Fears, everybody wants to rule the world. Everyone's trying to change their roster.
Nice.
You know, you come up short, and now we got to change. What do we need to do? We came up short. And there are a bunch of teams that are in that boat of we can't get past the second round, or we can't get out of, you know, the Cavaliers got swept. Now they have to figure out, how do we close that gap and surpass? So ESPN.com had a team of insiders come up with 6 mock trades, one of which included the Sixers. And now last week I said, was it last week or maybe the week before? Not that that really matters. I said, what about a sign and trade with Jalen Duren? And the Pistons probably are apprehensive to sign Duren, right?
Correct.
He just had a terrible playoffs, and we had Keith Smith on earlier. He did get third-team All-NBA. And because he was third-team All-NBA, now his salary has to be at a certain level.
Correct.
And the Pistons don't want to give him that money, most likely. I wouldn't want to.
Yeah.
But what if you're the Sixers and you say, listen, you don't want Jalen Duren at that money. We'll take him, and you can pick either Embiid or Paul George, and we'll get Duren off your hands, and you take this contract off our hands. Now, the problem is him and Embiid probably wouldn't be a good pairing.
Probably not, but I mean, still, if you, I mean, which is the contract going to get rid of more, Mike? Is it Embiid or George?
Well, the George deal has 2 years left. The Embiid has 3.
3.
So probably the Embiid deal because it's one less year of it. But I'm not being picky here. If you're Detroit, you say, look, we know we can't win a championship with Duren. Do we take a roll of the dice that Paul George, as a secondary score to Cade Cunningham, helps us out?
Right. Can Paul George replace Tobias Harris again?
Exactly. Or, hey, listen, we'll take the shot with Joel Embiid. We're going to handle him differently than Philadelphia did.
Right.
And we think if he's healthy, him and Cade Cunningham, that's a duo that we can win with. We've got all the other pieces. Now, the deal that ESPN.com came up with is similar to what I'm thinking. They have the Sixers sending Paul George to Detroit for 3 players. Now, here's the problem. They also have the Sixers sending a future first-round pick with Paul George. So they're saying you have to attach a first-round pick with Paul George to Detroit, and in return, you're not getting Duren. You're getting Isaiah Stewart, Duncan Robinson, and Karis LeVert.
I'm intrigued by Duncan and LeVert because they both fill roles that this team doesn't have right now. Duncan Robinson is that, sharpshooter on the outside you haven't had since J.J. Redick.
Robinson is definitely a guy that you have not had. He's the guy that kills you and you haven't had. He's the guy that gets hot and wins a playoff game for you.
Right. He's like J.J. Redick used to be for you. He used to be the guy that when he starts hitting those shots, you just keep feeding the man.
He can win you a playoff game. It's something the Sixers have just never had, really. I mean, you say J.J. Redick, a guy who can win one. You need somebody that's not your star player that can win one game for you in the playoffs. You have to find a series, I should say.
Right.
And if Duncan Robinson is hot that one day, he can win a game for you that night. And by the way, last year for Detroit, 41% from three. In the playoffs, that number was 45% from three. So he has shown, and he's beaten you in games, the Sixers. He has shown he could hit shots. The problem is he's not a very good defensive player. You got to kind of limit his minutes. He plays about 27 to 30 minutes a game.
And that's where Karis LeVert comes in, because now it's like, okay, do you have LeVert and like Robinson like alternate on the floor? Do you say, hey, Kelly Oubre, you're going to alternate minutes with Duncan Robinson? There's a few different options you can go here, because I think we all can assume the starting lineup, if you were to trade either one of those guys, no matter what your starting lineup's got Edgecombe and Maxey in the backcourt, now you got to figure out who your 3, 4, 5 is.
So LeVert, I was a big LeVert fan in his net days. I thought he was a really nice, would have been a really good, third, fourth kind of guy.
Yep.
Can shoot the three a little bit. He's streaky. He's not a great three-point shooter. This year had the lowest scoring total of his career, 7.4 points per game. It's the lowest he's ever had in his career. This guy was a 20-point scorer in Indiana.
For the health
Brooklyn,
issues came
he
up.
was 18 points a game. So this guy was a player, but his numbers have drastically gone down and down and down and down. I'm not as excited about LeVert as I would have been. Of course, he's older now, but he's 31. He's 6'7". He's a guard, so he gives you a little length on the wing. He has a role. He's a guy that you can trust in the playoff minutes.
Right.
Which not the case with a lot of the players the Sixers had. Now, this year with Detroit in the playoffs, something the Sixers didn't have. He's just a guy who played 16 minutes a game. That's fine.
Right. He's not going to mess you up. He's not going to hurt you. He's not going to do anything to put you in a position that you're like, why did we put LeVert on the floor?
37% from three during the playoffs. Can he come in and give you 16 minutes, hit a couple of threes, defend, and boom? The other guy is Stewart. Now, Isaiah Stewart, he's a guy that I like in terms of he rebounds, he's tough. I mean, he'll get into a fist fight on the court for you. He's a little undersized for a center, but could he be the big man that plays behind Embiid? He's a guy that's used to coming off the bench. He's not a big-time scorer. Now, the one problem I see with Isaiah Stewart is in the playoffs this year, he really struggled.
Right.
He doesn't shoot. He only rebound 2.4 rebounds per game.
He was actually the worst of the Pistons' big men in the postseason.
And that's kind of saying something. Paul Reed jumped over Stewart as well. Now,
And Duran.
So I'm not going to be nitpicky here. If you're giving me 3 rotational players, is getting 3 rotational players better than having one player who's probably better than all 3 guys I'm getting back? This is the depth thing that
Morey and Bob Myers were arguing.
Morey and Bob Myers got into that little back and forth last week that we played that audio from. Morey said, well, you signed and traded for Iguodala, and you signed him for big money. You could have had 3 players and broken that money up. Why didn't you do that? This is almost a similar situation where you can get Paul George, who's better than Duncan Robinson. He's better than Isaiah Stewart, and he's better than Karis LeVert. But if you get 3 of those players instead of just Paul George, are you actually better?
I think it comes down to the coach. I think it comes down to, does the coach say to whoever Bob Myers hires? I don't know who that guy's going to be, but whoever it is, let's say it's just Mr. Smith. If Nick Nurse goes to Mr. Smith and says, hey, you get me Duncan Robinson and Karis LeVert, I can use those guys. I think that's what it comes down to, Mike, because some of the guys that the Sixers had on the roster, Nick Nurse just didn't trust them in the postseason. He just doesn't trust certain guys. And I think that this all comes down to, is Bob Myers and the Sixers front office going to give Nick Nurse guys that he trusts? If Nick Nurse says, hey, you give me Duncan Robinson, you give me Karis LeVert, I got plans for that.
Obviously, yes, you would like to say, I mean, if you ask, though, Nick Nurse, hey, would you rather these three guys or Paul George? He'd probably say, I'd rather Paul George.
To which I would say, yeah, but Paul George is a depreciating asset. So either do you think that Paul George is going to be as good or better than he was last year?
Yeah, I would think that this would be, listen, the contracts that you're getting out of Paul George for 2 years. I don't think any of those contracts that you're getting are 3 years. I think maybe
I think Stewart has is it Stewart or Robinson the longest term of those deals?
Somebody has a 2-year deal, I think. Maybe two of those guys have 2 years deals, and maybe one of them. But the big question is, do you want to give up the first-round pick? Do you want to attach the first-round pick, or do you just say, if I have to keep those guys on my team for 2 more years, I might as well just keep Paul George for 2 years?
Duncan Robinson has 2 more years left.
And the other 2 guys?
Looks like LeVert is entering the final year of his contract. I got to pull up Stewart.
So you would have Duncan Robinson for 2. You would have maybe Stewart for 2. And then Karis LeVert would be on the last year of his deal. Now, the Sixers have a couple of first-round picks.
Stewart 1 year and then a club option.
Okay. But the big crux of this is, you just say, I'll keep Paul George for 2 more years, so I keep my pick? Or do you give the pick away and you're getting 3 players?
Wait, how desperately you going to win now?
Well, I don't know that anybody's winning now with these 2 teams playing tonight, and now you got the Knicks playing at a pretty high level as well. All right, Sports Bash Live, you guys let me know on the White Horse RV text board, 609-403-0973. We'll wrap up the show coming up next. All right, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Phil's late tonight, 9:40, which is better than the rest of the week. They got some late games coming up. San Diego, LA. San Diego game 9:40. I think the LA games are like 10:10 next couple days coming up here. You got some late games tonight. It's Aaron Nola getting the call for the Phils. And let's see. They got a righty pitching tonight. Randy Vasquez tonight. Tomorrow is Christopher Sanchez and Walker Buehler. That's a 4:10 start. Friday, Wheeler will pitch for the Phils. Painter on Saturday and Luzardo on Sunday. Those are 10:10 starts against the Dodgers. By the way, the Friday 10:10, that's an Apple TV game. So better get your Apple TV membership for the month ready to go.
I'll stick with my MLB TV.
You watch on MLB TV?
No, I just watch it afterward.
The Phillies game when it's done
Yeah.
starts at 10 o'clock at night.
I'll be here late.
Tonight it is the Western Conference Finals on 97.3 ESPN. And Oklahoma City and the Spurs are all tied up at 2-2. This is a big game. I think you're going to see a lot of Jared McCain minutes tonight.
Hey, man. More opportunity for Jared McCain that showed that you shouldn't have traded me.
For those of you who missed the start of the show, I would go back and watch it on the YouTube channel. It was a good start to the show today.
What is that YouTube channel?
97.3 ESPN on YouTube. Subscribe, like, share, be a part of the show there. All right, tomorrow we are back. We'll recap the Phils night against the Padres. All that and more right here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. Have a great rest of your Tuesday, everybody. Coming up next, it is the best of the Sports Bash. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Have a good one.